Dun, 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 dun.
No, seriously, you need to hear this, man. Okay? Mm-hmm. You're not a bad guy. Right. Nobody is saying that you're some evil, twisted dude. Mm-hmm. Okay? Where's right now? Her family is desperately looking for her. She's missing right now. Yes, Dan. Where is Edna? I don't have a clue. Yes, I dropped her off at her house. Dan, please listen. You did not drop her off at her house. We have followed that car the entire day, up and down 25. Mm-hmm. There's a number of minutes that are unaccounted for that are not by her house. Okay? Which car? Mine or hers? Dan, stop playing games. You know what we're talking about. Okay, I can help you here. Okay. You gotta give me a second. You gotta let me answer the questions when they're asked. When I dropped her vehicle off looking for the guy, she said she wanted me to take her and drive around in my vehicle. So I left her vehicle. I went down to Food Lion and she was in my vehicle with me. And I dropped her off at home. Dan, we watched the video. She is not. The car sits there. It sits there, man. No, not in her car. Never. My car. We watched you go back to Food Lion. You did not drop anyone off, man. I picked her back up. She sat in my car at Food Lion and I went back and got her. No, you did not. When are you trying to say? Please explain. Explain yourself. Please explain at which point that we must have missed in the video that you dropped her off. Why that your vehicle never went back to her house. We have your vehicle, that silver car, going straight up 25 and not stopping at her house. That's not true. It is true. I stopped at her house. What's your wife going to think about this? Well, my wife would be very upset if I had done something, but I didn't, and I don't know where Edna is. I think you do, Dan. No. I don't know where Edna is. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Dan.
Hi.
Let's go back to why you wiped the car.
Hi, buddy.
What you said you were worried about what?
Yeah.
The only thing I did was because I knew I'd been in and out of her car all the time with her. I'm like, there is no way in hell I'm going to just leave this thing here because she's got somebody that's after her.
It's not making sense. I mean, you're the last person to be in a vehicle you wiped out of a lady that's missing.
That sounds really fucked up.
It does. It does. That's why we're here. But and then it's fucked up as it sounds. We're having to do it right. We're going to do it right but we got guys down there now that are homing in about where we think she might be.
His story rambled, and it didn't really add up, but the holes weren't big enough to catch him just yet. As the interrogation went on, deputies were still at work searching his property. The officers there found a formidable arsenal, including 2 AR-15 variants and up to 20 handguns, plus a large stockpile of ammunition. The serial numbers on both the AR-15s had been removed. Chapter 44 of Title 18 of the United States Federal Code bans convicted felons from owning firearms, and here he was with many of them in his possession. The removal of serial numbers is also illegal, building even more trouble for the man. The firearms violations immediately upgraded this investigation to the federal level, meaning that Prince could be held longer as the investigation continued. As the search of Prince's house continued, more damning evidence turned up, but not evidence dealing directly with the disappearance of Edna Suttles. This evidence would end up bringing down a serial killer who had lived unnoticed by the surrounding community for years and whose crimes were unknown even to the wife he shared his home with. Deputies discovered among his possessions the driver's license and passport of Nancy Rigo, age 66, a woman from nearby Charlotte, North Carolina. Rigo, a widow, had been missing since 2017 and had only made sporadic email and text contacts with her family members since that time. Rigo, or the person who may have been posing as her online, always refused to meet directly with family members when asked. The same family members would verify that Rigo and Prince were supposed to be in a relationship during this time. Her wallet was also found among his possessions, along with financial records that indicated Prince's address was now hers. Prince was also found to have Rigo's bank card in his wallet. It's not hard to see the possibility that Rigo was dead and that Prince had been using her money rose to the suspicions of law enforcement. A separate search warrant had been issued now to look for additional information.
They have no idea where she fucking is. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. That chick's missing for like 7 years. And the guy's using her fucking bank information
while the search for Suttles continued.
Like what?
The search allowed for the seizure of the aforementioned items, plus a purse that had belonged to Rigo's mother, Dolores Sellers Gore, who had passed away in 2017 from what had been called natural causes at the time. Prescription bottles with Rigo's name on them were also found, ones for cyclobenzaprine, tramadol, and lorazepam, all filled in 2017.
That's hilarious.
A black bag was found with more sinister contents. That bag contained zip ties, a taser device, lubricant, and crushed pills in a bag labeled Ativan, the brand name for lorazepam, a strong sedative that can be used to slow breathing and even cause death when combined with alcohol or some other substances. In custody, Prince was playing for time and maintaining his innocence when it came to Suttles' disappearance. On October 9th, as Prince sat in jail, his time ran out. Prince's wife decided it was time to leave and began efforts to put the home and surrounding property on the market. She enlisted a couple of friends to help with cleaning up the property and wrangling together a few chickens and other domesticated birds that were living on the property. One of those friends, while walking along the outer edges of the property, spied a large white bee box deep in the woods at the very corner of the land. KK Prince had been unaware of its existence and the contents that her friend found within. She quickly called law enforcement to search the box. After obtaining another search warrant, deputies from the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department found Suttles' purse, Jeep keys, rope, zip ties, and a variety of other small items belonging to her. A single opened cup of yogurt of the same type and flavor that Prince had purchased on that fateful day was also inside the box.
Crazy.
Nearby was a vehicle's back floorboard.
Why would you put the yogurt in there, though? What the fuck?
Panel, a black plastic bag, and a tarp. The floor panel would match one missing in Prince's other vehicle, a vehicle that had been taken in for repairs right after Suttles' disappearance. The repair shop verified that among the repairs was a request to replace that cargo compartment panel matching the one that was found in the woods. The trash bag also found at the scene included some personal items, possibly belonging to Suttles, such as jewelry, a bracelet, and a pair of shoes. The items were sent off for testing to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division's Forensic Services Laboratory, and the yogurt container came back showing signs that drugs had been mixed with the yogurt. Those traces of drugs included cyclobenzaprine, tramadol, and lorazepam, matching the same pill bottles of Nancy Rigo that were found in Prince's home. Realizing that a piece of linchpin evidence had been found, law enforcement brought in a cadaver dog to search the property on October the 10th. While the dog could not find Suttles' body at the site, it did alert officers that it detected the scent of human remains at the same location where the panel, trash bag, and tarp had been found. The body had not been located, but officers moved with a certainty that they had evidence of Suttles' murder. Sitting in jail, Prince so far held fast to his story through 2 interviews. He had admitted to knowing Suttles and having to come to Traveler's Rest to visit her a number of times before. He first maintained that on the day of her disappearance, he had met up with her, driven back with her to her home to discuss some matters about a private investigator that had been hired to look into her daughter's upcoming divorce. He then returned to the Best Western parking lot alone in her Jeep to retrieve his own vehicle and go home. He explained that he wiped down the vehicle to keep himself out of the private investigators' efforts. He stood pat on this explanation, thinking no connections had been found that would upend his story. Now, however, armed with new evidence, law enforcement agents began a third custodial interview with the man. It became quickly evident that Prince knew he was caught, and he moved quickly to control the narrative and as much of the outcome as he could.
There are things that have to happen, and there are things that are going to happen. And I'm a realist, and I have acceptance with this. I would like a little bit of control in how they happen.
Oh, hairdryer trick. What's that?
I will talk to you a little more freely.
For almost an hour, Prince confessed to law enforcement, stating that he needed to fully disclose his sins. He said that he knew he was looking at life imprisonment at best, and he quickly made a deal to ensure that he would not see the death penalty handed down to him. As part of the deal, he wanted to inform them of things that were not on law enforcement's radar, and that he would come
James, what's up, buddy?
clean when his attorney was present. Most importantly, he told the officers where they could find Suttle's body. In May of 2022, Prince led law enforcement officers to a piece of ground on a nearby property where they found her body buried but still identifiable. Still, in the custodial interview, he went on to explain that he had been involved in the deaths of Dolores Sellers, Nancy Rigo, and Lee Goodman. He had confessed to multiple murders. A serial killer had been uncovered. In the matter of the deaths of Dolores Sellers and Nancy Rigo, he claimed that he had hypothetically assisted euthanizing the elderly Sellers, hinting that Rigo had been a part of the process. He intimated that Rigo later was bothered greatly by what had happened and had threatened to tell the police. Rigo then became his next victim. He disposed of her body, did not tell anyone, and used a power of attorney that she had given him to have her Social Security checks routed to his residence. Sellers' death, originally attributed to natural causes, was reinvestigated and then declared a homicide. The third victim, Lee Goodman, was originally from Florida and had disappeared in the time between the deaths of Rigo and Suttles. Prince claimed that Goodman had attempted to rob him, but that it did not work out well, and her body was disposed of in a rural area after he had cleaned up the incident. No evidence of a robbery was ever found. Prince avoided trial and was sentenced to life imprisonment.
We certainly want to thank y'all for joining us today as we announce an arrest and subsequent plea deal has been reached in connection with the disappearance and death of Edna Suttles. She went missing from Greenville County on August the 27th of 2021. This investigation uncovered the man responsible, a man who has now been identified as a serial killer residing in Boston, North Carolina. 59-year-old Daniel Glenn Prince.
He is serving his term with no chance at parole at the United States Penitentiary, Hazleton, located in Bruce Mills, West Virginia. A maximum security prison, it is known by its inmates as Misery Mountain, an apt destination for such a man. While Daniel Prince will continue to live out his remaining days, his actions devastated families and communities. Our hearts go out to the victims of the crime, knowing that each of them left behind loving families and friends who, up until now, had no answers as to what had happened to their loved ones. Still, there is a question. Did Daniel Prince confess to all of his sins, or just a handful of them? Could there be other victims left behind in places he lived before he got to Bostic, North Carolina, and was eventually caught? Until he decides to say otherwise, we have to live with the hope that his trail of terror began and ended with these 4 unfortunate women.
Doubtful.
This is a case you won't soon forget. Deep in the Appalachian foothills of Pike County, Ohio, 8 members of the Roden family were slain, execution style, in their beds on the night of April 21st into the morning of the 22nd, 2016. 3 children, all aged 3 and under, were spared, and a tight-knit Appalachian community was left with questions of who had done such an act
they would spare
and
the
why.
children, if anything.
The largest mass murder in Ohio history would also set off one of its largest criminal investigations.
I just might tell you this is just the most bizarre story I've ever seen in being involved in law enforcement.
Before we begin, we would like to send our sympathies to the loved ones who fell victim to these abominable acts on this dark night. The western edge of the Appalachian Mountains is home to Pike County, Ohio. Some 28,000 souls call the area home in a handful of small towns and among the valleys and hollows of the area. It can be a hard-scrabble place to live, with fully 24% of its population living at or below the poverty line. Opportunity is a rare resource, but it is balanced by a fierce independence. A frantic phone call to 911 on the morning of April the 22nd would lead authorities to the evil that had been done, as the sister of one of the victims arrived at the property to feed the animals on the farm. She, Bobby Jo Manley, and her brother James went into the house.
What the fuck? Bobby Joe!
Discovering the horrors that had been done. Law enforcement officers and first responders flocked quickly to the scene and went into the cluster of 3 homes. The grisly discoveries they made showed that the attackers had achieved complete and total surprise on their victims. In the living room of the first house, they found the patriarch of the Roden clan, 40-year-old Christopher Roden Sr. Christopher had been shot 9 times from very close range and was the only one of the entire family to show even the slightest signs of defensive wounds. 5 of the shots were to the face and head, another 3 in his torso, and a single gunshot was in his arm, as if he had attempted to ward off the attack. Nearby lay the body of Gary Roden, aged 38, Christopher's cousin. The man had 2 gunshot wounds to the head from close range and a third close enough to leave a muzzle stamp on his temple. There was no sign of struggle from Gary, and it is thought he was asleep at the time the first shot was fired. In the next house, Chris's eldest son, Clarence Frankie Roden, and his fiancée, Hannah Hazel Gilly, were found murdered in their bed. Their 4-month-old child was found unharmed, laying between them, while their 3-year-old child was found asleep on the floor. Frankie had been shot 3 times in the head and face. Hannah Gilly had been shot through the eye and an additional 4 times. James Manley then rushed down to the third home, that of his sister and Chris Roden Sr.'s ex-wife, Dana Roden, a home they shared with their 16-year-old son, Chris Jr., and daughter Hannah. Hannah, 19, had just given birth 4 days before to her second child. Dana had been shot 5 times in the head, including point-blank shots through the temple and 1 upwards under the chin. In a nearby room, Chris Jr. was found with 2 fatal gunshots down through the top of his head. In the last room, Hannah Roden was found, dead from 2 gunshot wounds to the head. The newborn baby was unharmed and still attempting to suckle at the mother's breast. Her 2-year-old daughter Sophia was staying with his father and the family while Hannah recovered from the birth, and so she had been spared this night of horrors. As police and first responders swarmed over the scene, the area was cordoned off, and the members of the local community began to gather to offer support and to share in the shock of the discoveries. As news spread about the killings, a man from the crowd, Donald Stone, a cousin of Chris Roden Sr., began to worry about another member of the Roden clan who lived a few miles further down the road. He quickly called Kenneth Roden, age 44, and no one answered. Stone and 2 friends quickly drove down to Kenneth's small home and found that that man had not been spared the grisly fate of the other members of the family. He lay dead in the house, a single gunshot wound through his eye, fired from close range.
When you walked up to the residence, did you notice, was the door unlocked?
Yes.
Okay. So you walked into the residence together, and you said Luke was there first, but then you, and then what happened?
And then we walked in. We walked into the, supposedly the living room, and I noticed to the right, I didn't see him in there nowhere, so I've seen a stairway to the right, and I walked up the stairway, and that's where I found him up there in his bed.
And when you say you found him, who did you find?
I found Kenny.
Can you tell us what conditions?
Oh, this poor man. He's trying his best not to cry in front of everybody. Just let it out, big guy.
Blood all over his eyes.
Let it out, big guy.
Where was he located?
They ain't gonna think no less of you.
Okay. Did you believe him to be dead or alive at that time?
He was dead.
There were now 8 dead, all members of the same extended family, and there was a disturbing lack of evidence as to who had committed the massacre. No shell casings were found. There were no reports of any gunshots. 2 pit bulls that lived at one of the trailers didn't even start barking that night, and that particular pair of dogs had a reputation for being
No, that's what I'm
hostile
saying.
to.
That's what I'm saying. He's trying to hold it in because he thinks people are gonna make fun of him and shit in the courtroom or whatever. You can tell he's just trying to hold it in. But like shit, it's only natural, right?
Anyone they did not know. In addition, not a single cell phone was found among the victims. There were no other signs of theft, and so the missing phones had to in some way be a removal of possible evidence by the perpetrators. The sheer number of deaths without any signs of the victims being alerted pointed to multiple assailants rather than a single suspect. But who could have done it? Forensic experts from the County Sheriff's Department and the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation scoured the scene for any evidence they could find. Police sought out witnesses and tips, racing to outpace rumor and the code of the hills that might keep some people silent. Families in the community attempted to cope with the loss of so many lives as they buried their loved ones in the deep, dark hills of Appalachian, Ohio. The Roden patriarch, Chris Sr., and his brother, Kenneth, had a reputation for being on the wrong side of the law. A discovery of a pot-growing operation in the barn next to Kenneth's house and the discovery of what could have been a cockfighting ring set up at the family complex only strengthened the suspicions that those endeavors had brought an end to those men. Rumors swirled about the community that the Rodens had been involved with a Mexican drug cartel and that had led to their demise. Killings like these had been the hallmark of those organizations, but never in areas as far north as Ohio.
Yeah, there's no way they're going
to
know
in pot-growing operations in Pike County had shown tenuous links to the Mexican drug cartels, so the smaller operation of the Rodens could conceivably have been part of the bigger picture. Others said that the Rodens had been part of the Cornbread Mafia, a large-scale drug operation that worked throughout the 5-state area of the Central Appalachian Mountains.
Cornbread Mafia, I know exactly who they are.
That organization runs pill mills and meth labs, making use of communities back in those hidden hollers of the region, as well as short travel distances across state lines to facilitate the gathering of the necessary manufacturing materials. More of a loose confederation than a true cartel, the Cornbread Mafia, as it was known, had some history of violence, but nothing like the concerted mass killings seen here. Still, law enforcement could not rule out that organization had moved into a new phase of violence. Hundreds of tips poured into law enforcement and rewards were posted looking for evidence in the slayings. State and local investigators poured through the tips and tracked down potential connections, all to no avail. Enticing leads ended up going nowhere. The vehicles, mobile homes, and other evidence was removed from the Rodens' property and put into storage to preserve it as their work continued. Custody of the 3 children left alive at the scene and 2-year-old Sophia was brought to the courts to decide. Little Sophia, safely at the home of her father and another set of grandparents on the night of the murders, it turns out, would be the linchpin for the entire investigation and the centerpiece for the entire massacre. Investigators had no way of knowing at the time that what looked like an organized crime hit was actually a vendetta between two families that played out over the custody of that small child. Billy Wagner and Chris Roden Sr. had history together, there was no doubt about that. They didn't live that far apart, and both were from a more rough and tumble part of the community. The possibility that they had sometimes been partners in crime and possibly competitors in it was common knowledge of that part of local lore.
Thanks, boy.
Billy's son Jake and Chris's daughter Hannah Roden had dated from the time she was 13 until a year or so before the killing, and they shared the daughter Sophia. Outwardly, Billy Wagner shared nothing but praise and friendship about Chris, particularly in an interview with the Ohio BCI.
Me and him, you know, our plan was going to buy a car on the beach and just sit there and, you know, get drunk, sit on the beach and, you know, play with the strippers.
Once again, outwardly, the entire Wagner family seemed to be very concerned with Sophia's well-being. They filed for custody of the child shortly after the murders, producing documents allegedly signed by Hannah Roden stating that the father would have sole custody of the child should anything happen to her. And as the community settled back into normal life over the next few months, the Wagners, as a group, pulled up stakes and left the community. They headed to Alaska, about as far away as you could get from the violence that had occurred in Ohio. They would return as a group, along with a new wife for Jake, about a year later.
That case
Things had
right there,
cooled down in Pike County, and while
It's
the
an album
investigation
material,
wore on, life there had returned to normal for the regular population. The Wagners reintegrated into the community, and all the men got jobs at a local trucking company, where they were, for all intents and purposes, model employees. And that, on retrospect, was a little outside of their normal pattern. The Wagners had never been known as what one would call a model family, or even a normal one. In a region where families are close-knit and clannish by nature, the Wagners stood out. Growing up, the two sons, George and Jake, were homeschooled and kept close to the house.
Social rejects?
The
Cornbread family goes deep.
After the parents,
Cornbread family
Angela
runs
Wagner
deep, bro.
divorced, with Angela moving into a small home just down the road. While they kept to themselves and voted together on every family decision, it created a strong and indelible bond between them. When George married, his wife was also brought into the fold and kept under very controlling influences of the main four. When Jake married a woman while the family was in Alaska, she too would find herself under the crushing, controlling nature of the family. Not long after the family returned to Pike County from their stay in Alaska, something happened, and the two women bolted. What they told police and family members is not public knowledge, but perhaps coincidentally, the investigation into the Roden family massacre turned towards the Wagners. The facade of friendship and custodial care fell apart quickly, and a sinister story began to unfold, one of an illicit underage love affair, jealousy, and conspiracy, a story that would lead to cold-blooded, calculated murders, all to obtain permanent custody of the young Sophia. Assistant Attorney General Angela Canepa, leading the prosecution in the case, laid out the beginnings of the love affair to the court, setting the stage for what was to come.
It kind of starts with a love story, if you want to call that. A very young teenage girl, Hannah Mae Roden, age 13 at the time, was at the Pike County Fairgrounds. She participated in 4-H, and she had bunnies, and somebody introduced her to Jacob, who was almost 18 at that time, and she kept
one second, I gotta
him to
I'll read your comments. Just give me a second here. I gotta focus up. I gotta get
Jake will tell you that he was annoyed initially.
make sure I get this done.
But then on a second chance meeting,
there we go.
they started.
One of the Corbett a family. They started surviving. Some of the members were social rejects. Yes. One of their family members played Second Life. I knew one of them close. No way. That's cool.
Reportedly,
That's pretty sick.
Jake gets permission from Chris Roden Sr. to date his daughter, his very young daughter. Chris Roden agrees, but he always sends along a chaperone. Either Frankie or little Chris go with Hannah Mae whenever she's hanging out with Jake Roden. And you will learn as well that Chris Roden Sr. also knew Billy Wagner. They were in fact friends. And so because of that, he gave his permission for her to be dating Jake.
Assistant Attorney General Angela Canepa, leading the prosecution in the case, laid out the beginnings of the love affair to the court, setting the stage for what was to come. The two broke up after jealousy and anger took a turn for the worse within Jake. She called her father to come and get her after Jake allegedly choked her. She said that she couldn't take not just Jake, but how the whole family attempted to control her life. From there, the battle began over who should have full-time custody over the child. Hannah proclaimed on social media to her friends that she would never give the baby up to Jake, and she'd rather die than give a child up to him and his family. What she did not know was that the messages were being monitored as Jake and his mother, Angela Wagner, hacked into her Facebook account. A seemingly
especially nowadays, most crime
takes
place on the internet. You know what I mean?
Families on a direct path that would lead to her death and those of 7 of her loved ones. Jake had already made statements saying that he didn't like the people Hannah was seeing and who their child was being exposed to. It was during this time that Hannah began dating a man named Charlie Gilley, the brother of her sister-in-law, Hannah Gilley. The short-lived relationship would result in another pregnancy for young Hannah Roden. The birth of that child didn't just further push Jake over the edge, but it also provided the Wagner family with an opportunity to enact a plan they had been working on for some time. 4 months prior to the birth of the child, Jake and his family had gathered around a table in their home to entertain a plan devised by Billy Wagner to remove Hannah, not just from the picture alone, but to remove anyone else who might have a claim to Jake and Hannah's child, Sophia. The possibility that other scores between the two families were going to get settled as well cannot be ruled out. The Wagners voted on it, as they often did with many life decisions that would affect the group. There were killings to be done, and afterwards they would file legal motions for the custody of Jake's daughter. No one would be left to stand in their way, and there would be no challenges to follow. What happened next was months of planning, purchasing, and preparing to do the deeds. The Wagners knew they had to cover their tracks and be discreet in every phase of the plan if they were to get away with their skullduggery as they intended. They needed to be thorough in the killings. They needed to be quiet in the planning. They needed to leave no evidence behind, and they needed to make sure no one would be alerted to the killings as they were happening.
Investigators also found receipts.
Makes sense, not something you necessarily want to brag about, you know what I'm saying?
Purchases of shoes during the same month of the homicides that matched identically the shoe tread marks left in blood at one of the scenes.
The family began by purchasing 2 pairs of athletic shoes from a nearby Walmart, one for each of the sons. The shoes were not the size worn by the children. The shoes were not used and instead were intended to be worn on the night of the murder. The shoes were different sizes than the young men normally wore and of styles they would not normally have chosen. Handguns were obtained for each of the 2 sons. The firearms chosen were .22 caliber long rifle semi-automatic pistols, quieter and with less recoil than a larger caliber pistol, but still very deadly, particularly at the short ranges used in the murders. The men also purchased a manufactured suppressor for one and parts for making a second for the other gun. While not completely silencing the gunfire, these would limit the sound to just coughs that wouldn't carry well outside of the trailers the Roden family lived in. In addition, they purchased brass catchers, pouches which are slung on the pistols to catch ejected shells after each shot were purchased and mounted on the guns. The two sons practiced with those weapons and others extensively over the intervening months in a wooded area behind the Wagner family property, as shown by later investigations where bullets were recovered from standing trees. In addition, the remnants of a burned-out homemade suppressor were found in the area after Jake told them where to look. The family also purchased a cell phone jamming device to be used during the slayings, and both young men dyed their hair to further change their appearances. What? While this was going on, according to Angela Wagner's testimony and plea deal, documents were forged showing that Hannah had signed a statement
well, not the people at the top.
Saying that if she were to die or to become unable to care for the child, custody of Sophia would revert to Jake Wagner and his family. Those documents would be held until a few days after the killings in hopes that they would receive the child.
The gangs are not mafia, man. The ground level people are. Mafia is like multi-layered, right?
Life, but
you got your fucking head honchos, you got your capos.
The Wagner's son also began to stake out the Roden family.
Layered like onions. Oh, for fuck's sakes.
Attempted to control her life. From there, the battle family attempted to turn of the Wagner's test standing trend would be left, provided the Wagner family with an opportunity to enact a plan, provided the Hannah's child, Sophia. The possibility that other scores between the two families were going to get settled as well cannot be ruled out. The Wagners voted on it, as they often did with many life decisions that would affect the group. There were killings to be done, and afterwards they would file legal motions for the custody of Jake's daughter. No one would be left to stand in their way, and there would be no challenges to follow. What happened next was months of planning, purchasing, and preparing to do the deeds. The Wagners knew they had to cover their tracks and be discreet in every phase of the plan if they were to get away with their skullduggery as they intended. They needed to be thorough in the killings. They needed to be quiet in the planning. They needed to leave no evidence behind of the murder. Did they come home? How late did they make them look deadly, particularly at the short ranges used in the murders? The men also purchased a manufactured suppressor for one and parts for making a second for the other gun. While not completely silencing the gunfire, these would limit the sound to just coughs that wouldn't carry well outside of the trailers the Roden family lived in. In addition, they purchased brass catchers, pouches which are slung on the pistols to catch ejected shells after each shot were purchased and mounted on the guns. The two sons practiced with those weapons and others extensively over the intervening months in a wooded area behind the Wagner family property, as shown by later investigations where bullets were recovered from standing trees. In addition, the remnants of a burned-out homemade suppressor were found in the area after Jake told them where to look. The family also purchased a cell phone jamming device to be used during the slayings, and both young men dyed their hair to further change their appearances. While this was going on, according to Angela Wagner's testimony and plea deal, documents were forged showing that Hannah had signed a statement saying that if she were to die or to become unable to care for the child, custody of Sophia would revert to Jake Wagner and his family. Those documents would be held until a few days after the killings in hopes that they would receive the child in a way that would make them look caring and concerned and wanting to participate in the child's life, but not in the mother's death. The Wagner's son also began to stake out the Roden family homes. They were both familiar with the property and the people who lived there and how they came and went. What they learned now was the activity patterns of the family. When did they come home? How late did they stay up? Were there visitors after dark? And when the family slept? The information would serve them well in the terrible task they were undertaking. The fateful evening came right after Hannah Roden had given birth to her second child. Sophia had been sent to the Wagners for a couple of nights while Hannah, at her own home, recovered from the birth of the new child. As the Wagner plan sprang into action, Hannah went to bed with her newborn and went to sleep. The Wagners drove up to the Roden family property that included 3 trailers and homes along with a number of outbuildings and other farm features. The father, Billy Wagner, went into the house of Chris Roden Sr., ostensibly to recruit him for a lucrative drug deal. George and Jake hid in the pickup truck as their father gained entrance to the home. With murderous efficiency, they moved from home to home, killing adults and youths, but leaving the infants and toddlers untouched, just as they had planned. And then they disappeared into the night and began their plans to dispose of any evidence and assume their roles of shocked, surprised, and concerned members of the community, ones who shared a bond of friendship and near family with the murdered Rodens. The truck was ditched outside of the area. Their clothes and shoes were disposed of. The weapons, which could certainly incriminate them if ever found, were made to disappear in an ingenious manner. A cousin of the Wagners was having a birthday in the very near future. The man was a fisherman and often took his boat out on nearby lakes and waterways to enjoy his activity. The Wagners took the guns, shell casings, and suppressor remnants and placed them in gallon buckets strung on long lengths of rope. They then poured wet cement into the buckets and let them dry, sealing the evidence of their deadly deeds. And they turned them into boat anchors as gifts to the cousin. Those anchors were later taken out to a local lake, and their lines were cut, sending the evidence to the muddy bottom. They would have remained there, unknown and lost, had things not taken the turn that they did. The 4 publicly maintained the image throughout their move to Alaska and again back to Ohio, but cracks began to appear in the facade. Perhaps the 2 women who left the family gave information. Perhaps someone at work overheard a conversation. But whatever it was, local and state law enforcement began putting together the pieces. Soon, listening devices were hidden in the work trucks used by the Wagners, and a wiretap was begun as well. The Wagners were questioned as to their relationships with the Rodens, then brought in, and finally charged with the murders and the other crimes dealing with that night.
We promised that the day would come when arrests would be made in the Pike County massacres. Today is that day. George Billy Wagner III, his wife Angela Wagner, and their sons, George Wagner IV and Edward Jake Wagner. After an extensive, thorough joint investigation by the Attorney General's Office, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, as well as our Special Prosecution Section, and Pike County Sheriff Charles Reeder's office, these 4 individuals are now in custody for allegedly committing this heartless, ruthless, cold-blooded murder.
I'd only been sheriff of Pike County less than a year before April 22nd of 2016. And that day changed a lot of our lives, including mine. The images of the houses, the bodies, the scenes, I can never erase them. Even 20 years of law enforcement experience cannot prepare you fully for a day like that day. Every single day since that day we have worked as a team to figure out who did this in Pike County, where I've spent my entire life. We have obsessively focused on solving this case. We've been patient when it was painful to be, running down every lead no matter how small. But it all has brought us to this day. Today we have the answer. Members of one family conspired, planned, carried out, and then allegedly covered up their violent act to wipe out members of another family. They did this quickly, coldly, calmly, and very carefully, but not carefully enough.
Sitting in jail, proclaiming their innocence, the specter of COVID-19 dropped onto the world, and the family found themselves incarcerated, separated, and awaiting trial for nearly 2 years. 2 years that proved to be too much for Jake. Jake Wagner cracked under the weight of the silence and admitted to all 23 charges that had been levied against him. He cut a plea deal with the state in exchange for the death penalty not being used against him or his family. He would tell everything. He said that he personally pulled the trigger on 5 of the killings, leaving the other 3 deaths to weigh on the shoulders of his father and brother. He also testified that his mother did not have a hand in the actual killings, but that she had stayed home that night. He did, however, implicate her in the conspiracy, the cover-up, and the forgery of the custody documents. With his plea deal, Jake will serve 8 concurrent life sentences for his crimes with no chance at parole. Angela will serve a 30-year sentence for her role. Both Billy and George.
Why do the chicks always get let off so easy, bro? That's crazy. That's crazy.
Are undergoing trials for these crimes at the time of this story. Both have refused to admit their guilt. Text messages obtained from the night of the killings corroborated, in part, his story of the pretext for the meeting of Billy Wagner and Chris Roden Sr. The weapons, hidden in the cement anchors, were recovered and broken from their molds. Bullets matching those recovered from the bodies were found in random trees on the back portion of the Wagner's property, along with the remnants of the burned-out homemade suppressor, like those found with the recovered weapons. It was a long, slow grind, but the wheels of law, if not justice, seemed to have finally caught up with those who murdered the members of the Roden family 6 years ago. Jealousy and rage, conspiracy and lies, all have now given way to the survivors, who must carry on however they can. Our thoughts and hopes go with them.
911, Genie Police, Fire Medical.
Yes. We need a car here at 1231 Temple Drive,
Okay.
Winter Park, Florida. There's a woman that's a danger to herself and to others right now.
This audio recording was made in the evening of January 11th, 2019, when Michael of the Wagner's property, along with the remnants of the burned-out homemade suppressor, like those found with the recovered weapons. It was a long, slow grind, but the wheels of law, if not justice, seemed to have finally caught up with those who murdered the members of the Roden family 6 years ago. Jealousy and rage, conspiracy and lies, all have now given way to the survivors, who must carry on however they can. Our thoughts and hopes go with them.
911, Genie Police, Fire Medical.
Yes. We need a car here at 1231 Temple Drive,
Okay.
Winter Park, Florida. There's a woman that's a danger to herself and to others right now.
This audio recording was made in the evening of January 11th, 2019, when Michael Redlick would call 911 to frantically report a woman who posed a danger to herself and to others. Without providing more information, he told the operator that he would call back in 5 minutes, as his attention was drawn away from the call by this dangerous woman. But Michael would never make that second call. In fact, this would be the last call he ever made, and the last anyone would ever hear from Michael, because by the next morning, Michael was dead.
I don't know. I think my husband's deceased. There's been a tragedy at my home.
What's the address up there?
123 31 Temple Drive.
Never thought I'd do that? Really? Never thought I'd cut my hair again?
31 Temple Drive.
You already know I gotta cut that
My
hair.
husband is deceased.
Summer's coming up. Go get me some poos this summer, you know?
Because he's been, he's stiff and he's been wounded. He might have had a heart attack. I don't
Looks
know.
like I'm going bald though.
Okay. Did you
Yeah.
just find him? No, actually, it happened last night. It happened last night? Correct.
RIP.
Okay. How old is your
It's
husband?
all gonna be gone soon.
He's 65. So did you find him this morning? Because I know you said that you believed it happened last night. Did you see him
I
last
thought
night?
it was
he
just
okay
beard
or what?
shaving. Nah.
He was not okay last night.
Time to time, I mean.
We had altercation, and he stabbed himself, and I ran into the bathroom, and then when I came out, I tried to help him, and I saw he was lying in blood. And then I tried to help him, and I couldn't. Correct, yes.
He stabbed himself, man.
And then I tried to help him, and I woke up with sitting up next to him, and I've been trying to figure out what to do.
Right. So you all had an altercation last night, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Are there any weapons on scene now?
A knife.
A knife?
Mm-hmm.
Cheers.
Okay, so Danielle.
How you been, Julian? What's new,
So
buddy?
did he stab himself
What is
last
new
night?
though,
Did he
man?
stab
How is
last
life
night?
treating you? Everything
And
good?
you just didn't know
School's
what
going
to do?
good?
Correct, I believe so, yes.
Okay. Were you all drinking?
He was. And altercation was the night before, too, but I left the house and took my children with me because he was drinking them, too.
Mm-hmm. Were your kids there last night during this altercation?
No, they were not. They were not here.
School
They're not here
lol?
now.
School lol?
I know you first said that you thought he had a heart attack. So do you think it was a heart attack, or do you think
School
it was
lol?
due to the stabbing that he passed away?
Probably the stabbing triggered it, I guess. I don't know. It's a shoulder wound.
You say it's a shoulder wound?
School lol 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 lol.
How old are you, huh?
School lol 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 lol.
45.
The next morning, Michael's wife, Danielle Redlick, made this call to report Michael's death. When she was asked about what had happened, she would describe an altercation that had taken place the night before, and she states that she thinks her husband may have stabbed himself.
Oh, yeah,
but what left
definitely.
investigators puzzled was the fact that Michael had been killed more than 11 hours before the call was made. And, as the events of that night were exposed, we would come to learn much about Danielle and Michael's twisted relationship. But what would ultimately be revealed would be more shocking and
I've been on my computer
unexpected
forever?
than
Damn, bro,
anyone
why?
could have predicted.
Is he out there
Was
doing
this
things?
a case of a battered woman
I mean,
protecting herself? Or
where I live,
was
bro,
it
it's been like negative
cold-blooded
fucking
murder?
6 degrees and shit.
Before
you know
we
what I mean? That
begin,
can't be-
we would like to
Can't be
send
going
our
out and doing
sincere
shit yet, really?
condolences to the friends and loved ones of Michael Redlick, who fell victim to the abominable
It's got
acts
cobwebs and
described
dust.
in this case.
Damn.
Danielle Redlick was born in 1976 in Florida. Despite her mother and father
was in
separating when she was
Texas.
young,
Oh, you're in
her
Texas?
early years
Yeah,
were spent
yeah,
in
yeah.
a loving and
That's
safe
nice.
home.
That's sick. You're
Danielle
lucky.
attended the University of Central Florida, where she
Yeah,
graduated
yeah, I
with a
hope you get
Bachelor
in
of Arts
Texas weather,
degree
that's for
in
damn sure.
interdisciplinary studies, majoring in communication. She went on to
One time I get
complete
Texas weather is in,
psychology
like,
papers
August.
and a photography
Like
certification.
40 degrees outside.
Danielle was, by all accounts, an intelligent and ambitious woman. When Danielle was around 22 years old, her mother Kathleen met Michael Redlick. Michael was known as Red by his friends, given his last name. He was a nice guy with a big smile and an even bigger heart. It was his generosity and kindness that initially attracted Kathleen. The couple seemed content together, and by all accounts their relationship was a happy one. He was supportive and encouraging to Kathleen. Michael loved being sort of a stepfather to Kathleen's children, as he had none of his own. Even though he and Kathleen were not traditionally married, Michael fit in
still doing
well
zombies
to the
content?
fatherly
No.
and husbandly role for Kathleen's
Zombies
family.
community is full of a bunch
Two
of punks,
Danielle's
bro.
siblings
Bunch
lived
of
with the
fucking
couple,
losers.
while the other 3 lived with their father. By now, Danielle was
Fake
living
fucks,
away
bro.
at college, but she would regularly
I don't
visit
fuck
her
with that
mother,
shit.
her siblings, and her stepfather, Michael.
So
While
now I just
Michael
kinda do
was
my
a
own thing.
qualified lawyer in the years before he met Kathleen, he experienced great success as a businessman. During his relationship with Kathleen, he held a number of
Damn, what
executive
happened?
positions
Nah,
in
it's
professional sports organizations such as the Cleveland Browns and the Cleveland Cavaliers. But in
I'll
1997,
message you
tragedy
on
struck
Discord
when Danielle's
later if you
mother,
want. Just
Kathleen,
message me right
was
now, say
diagnosed
what's
with
up. I guess
advanced
you don't even
breast
use Discord.
cancer.
You haven't used it in a while, have you?
Kathleen, Michael, and the 6 children were devastated. Not only did they face losing
What
their
do you do
mother,
now, then?
but
Kinda
they were
just
also in
go
no financial
to gas
position to
stations and
pay for
shit.
her treatment. With her humble background, Kathleen didn't have the funds to pay for her
It's
own
Easter
health care.
Friday here.
But Michael wasn't going to give up on Kathleen without a fight, and he decided their best course of action was to get married so Kathleen could be entitled to his own health care benefits. With his executive position, his health care package would cover all expenses related to treating Kathleen's cancer, and once she was cured, they could continue on as normal. They had been together just 2 years. Kathleen loved Michael deeply, but they both knew
I'm
their
playing
shotgun
Runescape right
marriage
now.
was one of convenience in hopes that the modern healthcare system would help save her life. But devastatingly,
That's why I
Kathleen's
like to-
breast
Hey,
cancer
fair.
had progressed to stage 4. Despite trying every available treatment, Kathleen
Never
was
forgetting
told
to
she
come
only
back.
had months
Yo,
to live.
Respect, bro. Respect.
Just months after getting married, Kathleen sadly passed away from the terrible illness. Danielle had been very close to her mom, and she was devastated by her death and worried about how her siblings would cope with losing their mother. Michael was left to care for her 2 younger siblings who had been living with him and Kathleen. He reached out to Danielle and asked if she wanted to move into one of the spare rooms of the house that he had lived in with Kathleen. He hoped that Danielle could be a mother figure to her younger sister and help her through the loss of Kathleen. Danielle's sister was in the final year of high school and was traumatized by the loss of her mother. They agreed that having Danielle close by would provide some familiarity and stability while she finished her senior year. Danielle moved in, and initially their relationship revolved around completing the domestic chores for the home and providing emotional support for each other and to Danielle's sister. Michael encouraged Danielle and provided career guidance. His many years of experience in business put him at an advantageous position to guide Danielle as she set out into the working world. As Danielle began to rely on Michael more and more for emotional support, their relationship changed from amicable and fatherly to romantic and sexual. Danielle was working as a part-time bartender while she studied,
super fun.
and as their relationship began to change,
Gears of War
Michael
is
would show
super
up
fun,
during her
bro.
shifts. He would order a drink and they would chat while Danielle served the other customers. Soon, Michael began to take Danielle out with him to various activities and events. Initially, it seemed innocent enough, and Danielle thought of it more as bonding. That was until Michael began buying Danielle gifts and spending more time with her than anyone else. Danielle had become infatuated with him, and when Michael introduced Danielle to one of his business contacts, she secured her first professional job, and she felt indebted to him. Over a period of months, their once platonic stepfather-stepdaughter relationship turned into something much more physical. Soon, they were in a full-on romantic relationship. It was Danielle's first experience with a long-term
Most of my
relationship,
friends have,
and
yeah.
she truly believed she
I'm
was
not a big
in love
COD
with
fan
him.
anymore. New Call of Duty's
But
kind of suck.
she was smart enough to know that given Michael's history as her stepfather,
Or you
her
mean the older
friends and
CODs?
family would struggle to accept them as a couple. So initially, Danielle and Michael decided not to make their relationship status public for fear of public criticism. By then, Michael had secured a position as the executive vice president of the NBA basketball team, the Memphis Grizzlies. This meant he would need to move from Cleveland to Memphis. When he first raised the issue of the move to Danielle and asked her to go with him, she declined. She knew moving with Michael would mean that her family would find out about their relationship. While they had been romantically involved for 2 years,
Little
she
ones
wasn't sure
feeling-
she was ready
Yeah,
for that level
they-
of scrutiny. She supported Michael moving and decided that instead of moving with him, she would just visit frequently until she felt ready to go public with their relationship.
Them, that would be fire.
When Michael moved to Memphis, he would fly Danielle out to see him every weekend, and she would touch down at the airport. Michael would pick her up and take her on a whirlwind romantic date before she had to return back to her normal life with her sister in Cleveland.
He took me to a place called Mud Island, where it's a beautiful neighborhood on the Mississippi River in Memphis. And he pulled up to a home and he went inside and he said, "I bought this for us." And it was a beautiful house, it had a pool, and it was on the river. And so from there, I went ahead and made the decision to go ahead and move to Memphis.
I don't know.
So you're there on a visit and he told you that he'd already bought a home for you?
But I got
Yes.
yes.
For you together?
Definitely dead.
At this point, how was the relationship?
It was dead when I was playing it.
It was good. I mean, like I said, odd circumstances how we came together, but it was good. We enjoyed our time together.
And how did the rest of the family view this at that point?
I think the sister that was living with us, I think she took it kind of hard, which I don't blame her. I think people were a little bit shocked, but other than that, didn't have much to say about it.
On one such visit, Michael drove Danielle to a beautiful home in the suburbs of Memphis. As they pulled up outside, he declared that he had purchased the home for her and wanted her to leave Cleveland and join him once and for all. Danielle was flattered and agreed to move out to live with Michael full-time. In a new city with new surroundings, they could finally be seen as a legitimate couple. With their newfound freedom, they decided to formalize their relationship, and in the early 2000s, the couple got married. There was no hiding from the criticism of friends and family, but the newlyweds presented themselves as a loving and dedicated couple determined to prove the cynics wrong. But even with their newfound freedom and determination to succeed, Danielle and Michael's relationship was far from perfect. Danielle was new to a long-term relationship, while Michael, who was 21 years older than her, had years of experience. He maintained a position of seniority over Danielle throughout their marriage. While Danielle was trying to make her own way in the professional world, Michael was already successful and had an established career.
Yeah, man, they were fucking
But the couple seemed to overcome their difficulties and went on to have 2 children together, who they named Jaden and Sawyer. Michael took to fatherhood just as he had with Danielle's siblings. He was a hands-on father, and despite the pressures of his professional role, he was able to support the children in any way he could. But as time went on and the children reached high school age, Danielle began to notice that Michael wasn't as romantic or as available as he had once been. She suspected he was cheating on her, and when she confronted him about it, her worst fears were confirmed. Michael admitted that he had been cheating on her. Despite the hurt and betrayal of infidelity, and on top of everything that had already happened between the couple, Danielle wanted to provide her children with a stable home, unlike what she had been raised in. So Danielle decided to stay with Michael and try to put their problems behind them. And in an effort to save their marriage, the couple agreed to therapy, both together and separately.
That's what you guys.
But the damage had already been done.
It was all about you guys.
The trust was gone, and the couple fought often. Their frequent screaming matches soon turned into physical and their endless fights. Eventually, the couple would separate and begin living their lives in separate homes.
I felt the lie when I was doing that.
Michael was furious and began to turn against Danielle.
That was weird.
He threatened that he would stop paying the bills on the home that they had once shared, and he cut Danielle off from being able to access their joint accounts. He told her he would go for full custody of the children and kick her out of the house that he was paying for, forcing her to return to Cleveland. And yet, Michael also claimed he wanted to reconcile. He told Danielle that if she let him move back in, he would continue to pay for everything. After a few months of separation, in 2018, Danielle filed for divorce. But the judge in the case rejected the divorce filing as Michael had not been properly served with the papers. Michael had managed to dodge the process servers on a number of occasions. On one occasion,
there's a
he
few people
visited
that stopped by.
Danielle and begged her for
There's a
one
few.
more chance to fix their marriage for the sake of their children. He promised he would change, and Danielle believed him. As the server turned up to deliver the papers to Michael, the couple were engaged in relations. Once again, Michael had avoided being served, and this time it was with Danielle's help. As they attempted to reconcile their marriage, Michael began to invite Danielle over for dinner at his condo. He started to take her on dates again and lavished her with gifts and expensive restaurants. Danielle was confused by the status of their relationship. In her mind, they were separated, and both were trying to rebuild their relationship. At the same time, she was suspicious that Michael had an ulterior motive or was potentially still seeing other women. When she stumbled across a letter Michael had written, Danielle's confusion turned to anger.
How do you feel at this point? After reviewing that, what's your mindset?
I'm shook up by it because I was surprised that he was saying this when we were clearly trying to get on better. And
Is what you're seeing there matching the interactions that you were having with your husband?
no,
After observing that, after having this experience, did you speak with Michael about it? Did you confront him about what you had found?
yes, I asked him about it.
And is that what leads to this email exchange?
Yes.
But could it have been this anger that led her to commit murder? Or had the years of conflict and abuse led Danielle to reaching a breaking point, leaving her with no choice but to defend herself against an attack by Michael? Michael and Danielle had been together for 18 years. They had been married 15 years when Michael died on the night of January 12, 2019. After Danielle's call, police arrived and it was immediately clear that Michael was dead and had been for some time. Rather than dying from a heart attack, authorities could see clearly that Michael had been stabbed to death. He was lying in a pool of his own blood, which looked as if it had been recently disturbed. There were bloody towels strewn across the floor in the vicinity of the body and throughout the home. The home smelled of cleaning products, and it looked like Michael's body was recently moved due to smears of blood on the floor. Danielle was in a frantic state when the police arrived, and she was taken to a psychiatric ward where she could be assessed for risk of self-harm. Meanwhile, an investigation began, and the family home was cordoned off as a crime scene.
Refer to everything we see here as suspected blood because you haven't done some tests to actually truly confirm that it's blood.
That is true.
But it's a pretty strong suspicion.
Yes.
Okay.
When Danielle was released from the psychiatric ward, she returned home. Michael's autopsy showed that he had died from a single stab wound to the chest, and that he would have died within 5 or 6 minutes of sustaining the injury. These facts did not line up with Danielle's version of events, and now she was considered a prime suspect for murder. A search warrant was carried out on Danielle's home, and she continued to deny that she had murdered her husband. Based on police interviews with Danielle and her strange behavior and demeanor after the fight with her husband, she was charged with second-degree murder. Despite having offered a plea deal to plead guilty to manslaughter in exchange for a reduced sentence of 10 years, Danielle decided to take the case to trial. And it was during that trial that the disturbing details of what happened inside their suburban home finally came to light. According to Danielle, she was in the fight for her life. There was no denying that she was the one who stabbed Michael, but her entire case rested on a claim of self-defense.
Ms. Redlick, on January 11th, 2019, did you stab your husband?
I did. Yes.
That he ended up pushing her to the ground,
And then did she get up?
Yes.
What did he do next, according to Ms. Redlick?
Pushed her head against the stove and began like covering her mouth with her face with his hands, yelling and screaming at her.
So can you kind of describe what you understood her to be saying Mr. Redlick was doing with his hand?
Like just covering, like smushing his hands over her mouth.
Okay. She was not describing being choked?
Correct, she wasn't.
Did she say whether or not Mr. Redlick struck her at any point during the sequence of events?
No, just smudged his hand against her face, but like that.
Okay.
Like smudged it.
Like was like rubbing his fist on
Yeah,
her?
like rubbing. Mm-hmm.
You're face to face with Miss Redlick, right?
Yes.
Nothing covering her face?
Right.
Did you observe any injuries on her?
No.
She detailed how their relationship was mostly great, but the incidents of domestic abuse had started long before they moved to Memphis and before she found out about Michael's infidelity.
I remember I made an offensive comment, which I wouldn't make today. I called him, I said at least he wasn't Jewish and cheap. And he backhanded me in the face and mouth, and my mouth started bleeding and my nose started bleeding. And we were in the car at this point. And so when I got to the red light, I wanted to get out of the car. And he grabbed me and I grabbed him back, and we kind of just went back and forth in the car. And we actually got pulled over.
She shared how Michael's behavior got progressively worse, especially when he drank.
He was coming home from work every day and he was pretty agitated. Something was really bothering him. I just remember that it was something, had to do with something with two of his bosses. And he was coming home and he was pouring a drink each night. And I was still pretty young at that point, so I grew up in a house where you eat dinner every night. And I noticed that Michael, when he would drink, he would skip dinner. And so he was doing this by the third night. I started to wonder, are you going to keep doing this? I think I'm just going to go ahead and, if you're not going to eat dinner, I'm just going to go down to the river. There's some, city walk where they have some shops and eateries and stuff. And when I said that, he got irritated and said, "What, are you mad because I don't want to have dinner with you?"
72K.
And I said, "Well, yeah, kind of at this point, because," I said, "how's the wallowing working out for you?" I said something sarcastic, and I went to head to the door to leave, and he was near the door, and he moved in front of the door. And I tried to shove past him, and I feel like at that point he raises his fist and he just crossed me in the face, and I feel like, I don't know, like he took out every frustration that he had that week on me.
We can't. The objection, Your Honor, you can't be putting words into his mouth. Come on,
laying
now.
in his lap, and he was stroking me, and he was apologizing, and he was crying, and I had
He was stroking you.
looked down, and I
Hey,
had
pause.
blood all over me, and he was telling me how sorry he was, that he's going to take me out to a nice dinner tomorrow, and he wanted to go ahead and take care of me, let him take care of me that night.
Witnesses also shared their experiences of the extensive history of the volatile relationship between Michael and Danielle. There are incidents which were reported to the police, and evidence of Michael being prescribed testosterone and a medication for erectile dysfunction. He had become increasingly frustrated and insecure about his poor performance in the bedroom, and he would verbalize his fears that Danielle would want to leave him because of these issues. His insecurity meant that
Poor
what
guy.
was once purely physical violence turned into sexual aggression.
He was going to be going out of town for a work function for the week, and so he called me from work the day before and said, "I'm going to bring home some movies and dinner. We're going to spend some time together tonight." And I said, "Okay." So he brought home dinner and alcohol, and we started watching the movie, and there was a love scene. And this happened often. I noticed he would get flustered and kind of start acting strange. And during this particular movie, he approached me, and he was aggressive, and he was hurting me. So I moved to a separate couch, and I told him that that wasn't okay. And he just continued to drink through the movie, and he passed out about halfway through, and I finished the movie. And at that point, I just went upstairs to bed. I turned everything off, and I let him know that I was going up to bed. He was snoring. I didn't wake him up, so I went up to bed, and the next morning he had to leave, get ready to go out of town, and then he came upstairs into the bedroom, and he said, "Why didn't you wake me up last night?"
So when he says that, how does it continue from there?
So I'm in my bathroom at that point, and I'm brushing my teeth, and we're having this conversation, and the next thing I know, something hits me in the back of the head, and I look, and there's a box of tampons on the floor. And I said, "Did you just hit me with that?" And he said, "Yeah, are you calling me a PUSSY?" And I said, "No, what are you talking about?" And he said that I had left the box of tampons on his side of the sink. What was I trying to say? And just was very strange to me. And I said, I don't know, they just happened to be there. I didn't do that on purpose. Didn't clean up the bathroom, sorry. And I was upset. And I said, maybe you are acting like that, a PUSSY. And I walked away from him. And
How did he react when you walked away?
he said that he came up behind me and grabbed me from behind and
He
started
said
choking
he came
me.
up behind me? What?
And I had never been choked that hard before by him.
You did this a second ago. Can you show the jury how, with your hands, do a
With
demonstration
his
of how
forearm, he just came up behind me and yanked me really hard and pulled me close to his body, and to the point where I couldn't breathe. He cut off my air and basically was choking me out. I started to pass out. I remember falling, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, is he going to kill me? And I remember reaching up and I fell to my knees. And the next thing I know, I was sort of aware, and I was looking up at him, and he was just staring at me with this like surprised expression on his face. And he reached out his hand and he said, I'm sorry. And I just crawled away from him into a corner. And I was really frightened at that point, and I couldn't believe it.
From Danielle's perspective and from witness testimony given by their children, the marriage and life inside the family home was toxic. Both parents were to blame for the behavior, which would be particularly bad when either of them had consumed alcohol. Michael had moved back into the family home just 1 month prior to his death. Danielle claimed this was after she had given in to his demands to return so that she didn't lose custody of her children. But she was realistic about the fact that it was unlikely their marriage would continue much longer. During the time she had filed for divorce, she had begun setting up profiles for herself on dating sites. Despite never meeting with any of the men from the sites, she had exchanged messages with multiple men, and she claimed that the reason they fought the night of Michael's death was that he had discovered one of those messages on her phone. This infuriated Michael when he discovered the messages. At the time, Danielle was out of the house for a brief moment after going to McDonald's for dinner, but when she returned, she would find Michael intoxicated, and in that drunken state, he would come at her violently.
And around 10 p.m., she goes to McDonald's. After McDonald's, she heads home.
When I was
And
playing
Michael is
like
there.
2 summers ago,
He
there
is
was like
pounding
10,000
down the
people
vodka.
playing online.
He grabs her food, and then he goes at her.
I'm not
He
even
is in a
joking.
rage, and this rage is the angriest that
This
she has
sucks to
ever
take
seen
BO3
him.
off it?
It's worse
Yeah.
than any of those other
You just get
incidents.
BO3 boy or
It's
whatever it's
different.
called. They've got BO3 clients and
He
bullshit
pushes
like
her
that.
down. She goes to her knees. He pulls her up by the hair. He shoves her to the kitchen island. He chokes. He smothers her. She reaches into a drawer. She grabs
What
a
are you
knife.
saying, Almighty?
She stabs him one time. He is stunned. He releases her, and she runs to the bathroom.
When it came time to testify to her version of events leading to Michael's death, Danielle calmly described what happened on the night of January 11th, 2019.
You find the knife. You're able to open the drawer?
Yes.
You're able to grab the knife?
Pull it out, yes.
You know what? I kind of want
How
to.
does it continue from there?
I kind of want to learn how to play like.
Pulled the knife out, and I don't know if he saw it, but he released my head, so I'm able to move.
Okay. How do you position? So you said that you're able to move a little bit. What position do you go into?
Slightly more to the left, turning toward him.
Does he back away from you?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
He says, what, are you going to stab me?
And
And I take the knife and I position it and face it toward him.
Damn.
What does he do at that point?
He immediately just goes for my chin and pushes me back, and I stab him at that point.
How are you positioned at the point of stabbing him?
Basically on the back of the island. And
Damn,
pinned by him.
son.
At that point, are you able to get out?
Are you going to go play Origins again?
After I stabbed him, yes.
Prior to doing that, prior to stabbing him with the knife, are you able to remove yourself?
No.
Are you able to wiggle free?
No.
Are you able to get out without using a weapon?
No, I was trying.
Are you able to talk to him?
No.
The defense rested on claims of years of a toxic and abusive marriage in which Danielle was driven to violence, the act which would end Michael's life.
Chab.
The
Oh,
prosecution,
yeah,
in turn, would also build a solid case against Danielle, accusing her of second-degree murder. From their perspective, the evidence painted a picture of a callous and cold-hearted woman that would say anything to get away with murder. They claimed she wasn't defending herself when she murdered Michael. Rather, she intentionally attacked him as payback for his infidelity. They claimed she was trying to find the easiest way out of their marriage and into the arms of a lover. They questioned every statement she made in relation to the events of that night.
You have told this jury that he has taken a bite of your hamburger, correct?
Yes.
And then he spits it at you,
Yes.
right? It's at this point that you stand up.
Yes.
And you grab that McDonald's bag and such, and you begin to throw it on the counter or the island, right?
Right.
Mr. Redlick is behind you,
Yes.
and you feel yourself get hit in the head.
He grabs me and I fall. Then I get hit in the head.
I thought you stumbled.
Yeah, well, he grabbed me first, which I tried to turn, and then I tripped up on my feet and fell.
So you fall, and then it's while you are still on the ground that you feel something hit your head.
Yes.
Could you tell if it was an object or a fist or something else?
Elbow, fist, I don't know what it was.
But not like a blunt object like a bat or a mallet?
I didn't think it was an object, no.
It's at that point that you are pulled back up by your hair? Is that what happens next?
Well, I attempted to get up on my own, and he was too far on top of me, so...
Where are you at when he's now too far on top?
20 on town, farm and bus depot.
Coming up, trying to get up off the ground.
I mean, farm, son.
Where specifically? Where specifically, or
I like
is he
farm
too
the
far on
most
top
out
of
of all
you
those
to
maps, to be honest with you.
get on top of you?
Bus depot's
am I
pretty
using
cool, too.
this?
Bus depot's
Permission
easy.
to allow the witness to use the laser pointer, Your Honor?
Yeah, that's fine.
I do this.
Bus depot's pretty easy. For the first 20, 30 rounds. Once they start sprinting
laser
more,
pointer to where
and
you
you got the
were whenever
walkers.
he was too far on
yeah.
top of you for you to get up, please.
Yeah.
I'm in this corridor between here and here.
Okay.
Facing that way. On my knees.
On your knees, facing towards the cabinets on the far wall where the scale is at. Yes? And when you say he's too on top of you to get up, is he actually standing, he's standing over you at this point?
Yes.
And is it this point that he picks you up and by the hair?
No, I'm going to get up like this, and I don't know where exactly he's at, but I know his head slammed into my head.
So as you're getting up, you feel your head on his head.
I feel the back of my head on his head.
Then it's at that point that he takes your head and he slams it onto the stovetop area. Yes?
No, I wouldn't say right at that point, no. I reached up and with my right hand to pull myself up. And as I'm pulling myself up and trying to turn around to face him, that's when he grabbed my hair and slammed my head onto the...
Slams your head into the stovetop, yes?
Yes.
And at this point, you have a 6'1", 240-pound man pressed against your body.
242-pound man.
Pressing you against that island.
6'1". This guy's definitely from Boston.
The next thing that you say happens is that he begins to take his fist and he's rubbing it in your face.
Definitely
that was
in
your
Boston,
story, right?
man.
Took my head and he held it down. It was a very awkward position. I couldn't move because it was...
You just hear it from his
A,
accent,
hurting.
man.
And yes, he had me pinned, so he held my head down first.
So your neck is sort of like cricked against the corner of that island at that point?
Yes.
Now he's using this force to keep your head down.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And he is still on top of you. His 240-pound body is still pressing you into that island.
Yes.
You can feel the island on your body.
Yes.
This is when the rubbing happens?
Yes.
Because he doesn't hit you.
He doesn't punch me, no. Well, he hit me in the back of the head, but...
In the back, where your hair covers, correct?
Yes.
On the skin that's exposed, he doesn't strike. And then is it at this moment that he decides that he's going to put his hands over your nose and mouth?
Yes.
The prosecution had a lot of questions for Danielle, asserting that her excuses and explanations didn't add up to self-defense. The fact that Danielle had waited 11 hours before calling 911 was highly suspicious. Why would an innocent victim wait so long to call for help? The delay meant she missed the opportunity to save Michael's life. Danielle claimed that after she had stabbed him and gotten away from his grasp, she hid in the bathroom after their fight because she was scared for her life and didn't know Michael was dying. The prosecution also pointed out her statements on the 911 call that Michael had had a heart attack,
I'm saying with
and her second explanation that he had stabbed himself during the fight.
Yeah.
Statements that were admittedly
I'm supposed
untrue.
to be
But
playing
Danielle
with
excused her
red
lies
aspect
by
tomorrow.
saying that she was in a state of shock immediately after the stabbing and couldn't process her thoughts correctly. She told the court that she was scared and confused and didn't know what to say when she called 911. But there were still more questions to be answered. Investigators found deleted texts on Danielle's phone which she sent while Michael lay dead on the kitchen floor. Her phone also showed evidence of a dating site being accessed while Michael lay there dying on the floor after being stabbed. The prosecution claimed this proved that she couldn't have been in so much shock that she was unable to function and call 911 to get him some help. The prosecution called on Jaden, one of the couple's daughters, to testify. Though her face could not be shown due to her age at the time, Jaden revealed that Danielle was not the victim at home. Rather, she was the instigator of the couple's fights. She further described Danielle as toxic and manipulative. In contrast, she had a very close relationship with her father, whom she described as attentive and loving.
Jaden says, my dad and I were very close. We practically did everything together. He took me out on daddy-daughter dates all the time. We were very close. I told him everything. Prosecutor, what was your relationship like with your mother? Jaden, very toxic,
send me a video email later?
very
Alright.
manipulative. Prosecutor, what was the relationship like between your parents? Jaden, very toxic, tumultuous, very rocky. Yeah, it was not a good relationship, very rocky. Prosecutor, who was the primary source? Jaden, my mother. Prosecutor, why do you say that? Jaden, if there was an issue between them, it would be brought up by my mother. Jaden, when he came home, he was very distant, and this is what she's talking about, I believe, the night of. Not very talkative. He was very cold when he came home. Prosecutor, did you sense tension? Jaden, yes. Prosecutor, did it turn into an argument? Jaden, yes. It was very rare for me to see him get angry and upset. That night, he told me he was sorry, that he loved me, and he wished I hadn't seen him like that. The next day, I went to school, and those were the last words we ever exchanged. I didn't answer him then. Jaden, the last thing I said to him was when they were arguing the night before. Jaden, I received a text from my mom saying she was dealing with something here and that it was best for me to stay at my friend's another night. I thought that was odd because my mom usually wanted to pick me up right after a sleepover. Prosecutor, when was the next time you spoke to your mother? Jaden, sometime later that week. I believe she called me from
Jay,
the
how are
hospital.
you the only one that
Prosecutor,
wins? How the
did she tell
fuck
you
do
what
I
happened to
always
your
lose,
father?
bro?
This is important, folks. Listen.
Oh my
Jaden,
God.
no, I don't think so. Prosecutor, did you later ask her
How?
what happened to your father? Jaden, I remember her exact words were, the autopsy said he had a heart attack. Prosecutor,
Bro,
I have no
how?
other questions for this witness.
When the
That's
prosecution
insane.
rested its case, it was not clear how the jury would find in the matter. Both the defense and prosecution had painted vastly different pictures of Danielle Redlick and her motives for stabbing Michael and covering up the crime. Both sides admitted that the marriage had been toxic and unhappy for a number
I'll
of
check that
years,
out for sure.
but it was up to the jury to decide whether they believed the testimony of a battered woman who felt she was driven to murder in order to save her own life, or would they side with the prosecution who presented the voice of a victim who could no longer defend himself. Did they believe that he was struck down by a deceitful and calculating murderess who was only concerned for herself? The trial, broadcast internationally, and internet forums were divided on how the jury would find the case.
I'm trying to get this level 99 here. I'm like 4 hours off of getting it to 99. 4 hours off of getting my 99 fire making. And then once I get that, I'm gonna take my dog for a fat walk. Let's see what the weather's supposed to be like today, actually. That. Yeah, take my dog for a fat walk in a bit when it warms up. Have a good night. I mean, yeah, I just sat here playing RuneScape, bud. You know what I'm saying? I don't really do too much nowadays, man. I'm just kind of just chilling, bro. Just chilling. I'm a pretty boring person, I guess. No way. You're pretty fly. Hey, appreciate you. Pretty fly for a white guy. Exactly. That's funny. Pretty fly for a white guy.
After just 2 days of deliberations, the courtroom was completely silent when the verdict was read.
In the Circuit Court of the Ninth Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida, case number 2019 CF 18460, State of Florida versus Danielle Justine Redlick. Verdict as to count 1, we the jury find the defendant not guilty. So say we all. Signed juror badge number 283, foreperson.
In response to the acquittal, Danielle and Michael's daughter Jaden gave an emotional statement to the court, which was read by her attorney.
I want to start this off by saying the only reason I am not personally reading the statement to you all myself is because I simply do not ever want to be in a room with Daniel Drohan ever again. I feel as though there has been absolutely no justice served from my father or his family, including myself and my younger brother. It takes a lot for me to talk about these things and be so vulnerable in front of total strangers. So I please just ask that you all listen to me and please take my feelings into consideration. Since I was about 7 years old, I have endured insane amounts of trauma. This trauma all stems from the same thing, Danielle Drohan. And yes, I'm referring to her as her first name and maiden name because I feel as though she should not even have the privilege of having the same last name as me or my father. I refuse to call her mother because she was never a decent mother figure to me. There were a great deal of things I was not permitted to say and watch, and get to know people.
Oh my God.
He loved
other crimes of which she had been found guilty. She was due to be sentenced for tampering with evidence, as investigators had proven she had cleaned up the blood and moved Michael's body after his death.
According to the crime
You really
scene
should
pictures
watch
and
the vid
evidence,
sometime. It's like
bloodstains
27
were
minutes, but it's
smeared
pretty
throughout
crazy.
the
I'll
home.
put it on after this
You
case.
used
I just want
bleach
to see
and
what she
other
gets
cleaners
sentenced
to
to.
clean what looked like a horror scene. Crime scene photographs also showed where you left the cleanup towels and a bucket of colored water. The blood pattern expert testified that typically blood patterns to tell a story or explain the circumstances surrounding a homicide crime scene like this, but not so in your case. The expert also testified that as a result of your conduct, it was virtually impossible to determine the exact circumstances surrounding Michael Redlick's death. The scene was tampered with so much so that the blood evidence was of little to no value to determine what happened between the night of January 11th of 2019 and mid-morning, January 12th of 2019.
Gucci bros.
You've already been
What do you mean?
adjudicated guilty of count 2, tampering with physical evidence. And so for that conduct, I will sentence you
Like, am
to
I good? Yeah, I'm
364 days in the Orange County Jail with credit for 364 days
Chilling,
time
man.
served. That's going to be followed by a period of 12 months of probation. You will report to probation by 3 p.m. The office is on the 7th floor beside courtroom 7B. Within the first 30 days, you will sign up for and you will submit to a mental health evaluation and complete the evaluation and any required treatment within 12 months. I will impose court costs.
No, you're good, bro. Appreciate that, dude.
And there is
Not
also
many
a
people check
public
up on
offender
it.
lien that should be
And
imposed.
they peeps like that, you know what I'm saying?
Court costs of $418.
How many people check up on their peeps like that? So it's not
Mr.
respect.
Parnell and Ms.
You're a good man.
Conlon, for the public defender lien,
You're a
what
good
do you
man.
feel is an appropriate cost for your services for the trial and the litigation?
On January 18th, 2022, Danielle was released from the Orange County Jail after having served nearly 1,100 days behind bars while she awaited her trial.
The year is 2009, and Modern Warfare 2 has just been released. Call of Duty was entering its golden age, and so was gaming on YouTube.
We're back, and it's your boy Wings of Redemption.
Yo, Wings!
It was the perfect storm to create the Call of Duty
It's your
trick
boy,
shot
Wings of
scene.
Redemption.
With the rise of brands like FaZe and Optic, what was once a wholesome hobby was now big business. The money, the fame, the glory, all the incentives were there to cheat. And what the average viewer didn't know was that behind the scenes, a whole industry had spawned around the production of fake trick shots.
Obviously. Even as a kid, I knew that shit was fake.
We're going to look at the ingenious cheating methods that fooled millions of people, the famous players who were caught back in the day, and the vigilantes who exposed them.
Saw Trust here, and today I'll be exposing L7 Koala for faking clips.
You fucking fake clips. You're kicked from the response. You're kicked from the challenge, and you're kicked from the store. You're a fucking idiot, dude. We just wanted you to know.
But before we go on, I have to give a warning. If you've got nostalgia for the trick shot scene, I don't want to be the one to ruin it. But after this, you can't help but wonder just how many of these trick shots were actually real.
None. Like, very few. It started out as a legit thing, but once people started making bread off it, it was just all
January
fake, you know what I
2012.
mean?
This is when the world of trickshotting started to lose its innocence. FaZe Agony and FaZe Wartech released a montage called Coexistence. This montage was about to trigger the first big cheating scandal. So I'm here on the Coexistence montage, and this was notorious for having some fake shots from Agony. So let's take a look at this next shot and see if you can spot anything suspicious. Now, at first glance, it looks like Agony has hit a triple kill, where he kills 3 enemies with 1 bullet. And if we look at the kill feed, we can see that he has killed 3 enemies. But then we start going frame by frame. And what we can find is that while Agony is zoomed into the sniper scope, there is actually a sudden jump cut.
Yep.
And if you pay attention to the kill feed, you can see that suddenly, from one frame to the next, 2 kills appear that were not there before. And then if we keep playing, then the final kill fades in. So what happened here is that it was actually 2 separate shots.
Yeah.
It was a double kill and then a single kill.
Shot, yeah.
But Agony edited it together to make it look like it was only a single shot,
Like,
triple kill.
That's nothing new.
And he also did the exact same thing again on this shot here.
The scene obey and shit.
As you can imagine, trick shotters were not very happy about these fake triples.
Yo guys, what up, Bully G here, and I want to make this commentary short and simple. Agony isn't respected by like anyone but little 12-year-old kids who don't even know what the fuck's happening. It's unfair that we have to get legit clips and he can just go around hitting triple feeds and faking them, making them look like triples.
In response to the backlash, Agony was kicked out of FaZe, and then came the apology video.
Yes, we did get kicked out of FaZe, so that's not a rumor. They spotted.
They're still in like, oh yeah, for sure. It's because of the guy just said right there. You know what I mean? All these stupid ass 12-year-old little kids like that shit. You know what I mean? They still fake shit to this day.
And I'm gonna admit to that.
With Agony being out of FaZe, he decided to make his own team, which was called Obey. Now at this point, you might think he would have learned his lesson and stopped the fakery, but in reality, it was only about to escalate. In December 2012, Agony uploaded this clip on Black Ops 2. It was an amazing shot, even though it was only a hit marker and not an actual kill. Except for the fact that it was fake. And he would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for the Black Ops 2 theater system. The theater system is built into the game, and it automatically keeps a replay of recent matches. So some detective out there must have been suspicious, and he was able to track down the exact match where Agony had hit the shot. And this is what he found. The shot completely missed.
Yeah,
the
he
hit
threw in the hit
marker
marker,
was a
yeah.
total fake, and it had been edited in by Agony.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
so
when
a
this
lot of
shit,
people
dude. I
like
remember
Obey
when all this
for
shit was happening, bro. Like,
oh, here it is right here. Here's the split trip headshot feed. Boom, and I jump off here and I add a hit marker. And yeah, that didn't turn out too nice. This isn't really an apology video. A lot of you will see it as that. It's an explanation video. Only people I'm sorry to are
absolutely
the
fucking
people that
nobody.
left my clan.
In the aftermath of this latest and greatest fake, one of the leaders of FaZe, by the name of FaZe Seabass, came out and revealed something. As it turns out, he was aware of multiple other fakes in Agony's videos, going all the way back to 2010. But the truth is that Agony's cheating scandals only really seem to benefit him.
I feel like Agony keeps faking clips because he knows he can get away with it at times, and if he doesn't get away with it, he just gets more attention, which is more views, which is more money, so it's like a win-win situation for him. If it's okay to fake clips, then we should all just do it. Like, I feel sorry for the clan members in Obey that are constantly trying to get clips and just get disrespected because of their leader.
Despite causing all this mayhem over the years, Agony was ultimately forgiven and even allowed to rejoin FaZe a few years later.
Yo,
But in the
Thursday, yo,
meantime,
Sean, much
that
love, brother,
fake
much love.
hit
You stay safe
marker
out there,
was about
brother.
to have grave consequences.
Stay safe out there,
because
brother.
now there was a dangerous idea in the wild. The idea of using assets from the game, such as the hit marker, in order to produce fakes. There were some nefarious players out there who had been taking notes. They were about to bring this concept to a new extreme, and the perfect opportunity was right around the corner.
What is up, guys? This is FaZe Seabass, and I am here today with a huge announcement, something that has been very highly requested from us, the FaZe Recruitment Challenge. It is finally here. And
in 2013, there was an absolute dream opportunity for trick
I remember when this happened,
when
too.
FaZe announced the FaZe 5 challenge.
I remember when this
and
shit
the
happened.
5 winners would be invited to join. One of the contestants was a player called Tensor. He gave it his all, and he made it to the top 20 before he ultimately lost. But then the next year in 2014, FaZe ran the same challenge again. And this time, Tensor was going to make sure he didn't lose. Everything was going well for Tensor as he cruised his way to the top 100.
No way.
But then he got a call on Skype.
What? Yo, I don't know what these guys are doing in this call, but you fucking fake clips. You're kicked from the you're kicked from the challenge, and you're kicked from the store. You're a fucking idiot, dude. We just wanted you to know.
He love the chat.
Under the pressure, Tensor had faked some of his shots for the challenge, but the way that he did it was about to change everything. Here we have one of Tensor's fakes that got him exposed. But pause it right there. This piece of text is the most crucial part of the clip, the match bonus text. The thing about this text is that it always appears in a public match, but never in a private match. So trickshotters had always relied on this to verify that a shot was hit in public match and not set up in a private match. But some fakers out there had tracked down the original font from the game, and they had used it to make an asset in Photoshop to be able to make a fake match bonus with any XP number. This asset was being sold for money online, and players like Tensor had started to use it.
I would really just import all my match bonus. You just add this match bonus.
The entire crew? Yeah, no
way.
way.
You do.
If you made a stupid mistake like Tensor, then of course this could still be detected. In his case, he accidentally put up the match bonus a frame too late. And in the case of some other players, it will be a lot more obvious than that.
He misspelled match bonus. Match bounds.
But cheaters had learned from the mistakes of Tensor, and they had made the fake match bonus harder and harder to detect.
Bounds.
Until out of the blue, an incredible discovery was made by a player called Sawtrust.
Yo, what is up guys, Sawtrust here, and today I'll be showing you guys how my match bonus calculator works. And
up until this point, cheaters were just picking a random XP number for their fake match bonus. But Sawtrust had discovered that this number follows a predictable formula, and now he was able to catch these cheaters out by verifying if the number was correct.
And his match bonus should be around 500 or 508. But instead, he does not know how to calculate match bonuses, and he makes it 609, which isn't even possible.
Sawtrust was able to expose countless players, but it was only a temporary solution. Now, the cheaters also knew how to calculate the match bonus, and they made sure to do it correctly from now on. It was only getting harder and harder to tell what was real and what was fake.
Bro,
but if you thought fake match bonus was bad, that was only the tip of the iceberg. Because cheaters were going to fake everything they could get away with. For example,
I remember when all this shit was
check
happening.
This one out.
I'm not even trolling.
Fake microphone pop-ups, which appear when someone talks in the in-game chat. This was used to sell the illusion of an active public match, when in reality it was actually a private match. And people also used it to make it look like they were friends with famous players.
Oh yeah, I remember some super famous. You remember this shit, deadass? I remember a lot of it, not all of it. I remember someone getting caught because they were faking the names in the feed like this. I remember someone getting caught. It was like, he was huge back in the day. He had like 50,000 subscribers back in the day, which was a lot, you know what I mean?
Fake kill feeds, fake scoreboards, fake player cards.
Yeah.
Everything you can think of was being faked. And it was all being sold in so-called fake clip asset packs. Such as this one, which was sold by someone called FaZe Faking. Fake trick shots was such a phenomenon that it even became an art form in its own right. Fakers began to take pride in their work, and they would even host competitions for the best fakes. Players like Sawtrust continue to do their best to combat the problem, but the reality is that there were probably many players who got away with this. Actually, we know that some players did get away with it because we only found out later when they chose to expose themselves.
Yo, what's up guys, Visions here, and I'm here today bringing you my fake clips video and exposing myself.
FaZe Viz was a popular player back in his day with over 100k subscribers, but then he decided to quit in 2014, and in his last breath, he decided to expose himself for various fake trick shots that nobody had ever caught.
It's kind of crazy how I got away with this, and everybody says like if you fake clips you're gonna get caught and stuff, but yeah, faking clips like this really is not hard at all. Like I said, I got away with it, and what I did was pretty easy.
In some cases, he even went as far as to steal clips from other players. He would use the asset packs to replace their username with his own.
Wow.
I faked like a bunch of clips. I actually took people's clips in this and made it look like my clips. Then what I did is I just took my title and emblem and I masked it over his title and emblem. But yeah, if you see this, then yeah, I took your clip. Sorry, but anyway.
But possibly the most notorious faker was a player called Kleos. He was actually the first person to start selling asset packs. He definitely enjoyed faking, and he would even make alternate identities just to see what he could get away with and what teams he could get into. For example, one of his many identities was called Absolute. Every single clip under this identity was fake, but they fooled everyone and he was invited to join many teams until Kleos revealed that it was him.
It's Kleos here, also known as AAE7 Bandia, also known as Exodus Scott, also known as Thrust Class, also known as Thrust Mace, also known as Psycho Hard, and also known as SB Absolute. And, well, yeah, as many of you know, I am SB Absolute, and I just like to start.
Kleos was certainly a troublemaker with all of his fakery and different identities, but he also had a cult following. People admired him for his faking skills and his asset packs. And he was also close friends with another faker by the name of Katz. In June 2014, Katz made an appearance on Drama Alert with Keemstar, and he revealed a big list of players who were faking.
Drama Alert. What is up, Drama Alert Nation? We are here with Dare Katz. Now, we did an interview yesterday with Tensor, and Tensor was starting to name off some names of other people in the trick shot community that are faking clips. Then we got a tweet from Katz saying he knows a lot more and will reveal a lot more. I said, okay, Edward Snowden, let him have it.
Ew, Keemstar?
Right. Sore Bobo, Given Fantasy.
Oh, the guy who made this video here. Yeah. Going back,
there was just one problem with this major bombshell.
For sure.
None of these players were fakers, and some of them weren't even trick shotters. The list was a total fabrication by Katz and Kleos, just for the purpose of trolling Keemstar. But the question is, would he be dumb enough to fall for it?
Synergy Donnie, Dare Branjo, Sore Rim, and Obey Soak.
Oh my god. This is the biggest drop of fake clips ever in the history of trick shotting. This is insane.
But even though Keemstar got trolled with this list, it was true that fake trick shots were becoming a widespread problem. And whilst all this was going down, there was an entirely different method of faking that some cheaters had started to use. So this brings us to our next case study, the case of Saw Azza. In April 2013, Azza uploaded this clip on Modern Warfare 2.
Yep, off the top, baby. Ooh.
At first, everything looks normal. It looks like a legit shot in a public match with a correct match bonus and everything. But there was a tiny mistake that gave it all away. For whatever reason, Azza just so happened to pause the game for a split second. And there was something very wrong in this pause menu. You see, in a normal match on Modern Warfare 2, the name of the game mode always appears in the pause menu. In this case, Search and Destroy. But in Azza's clip, the name of the game mode is completely missing from the menu. And this is something that's only known to happen in a modded game. It turns out that Azza was using a hacked Xbox, along with a mod menu like this one. And as you can see, one of the features in this mod menu is to set it from private match to public match. When this feature is enabled, the game will have everything you'd normally expect from a public match, such as the match bonus. So this way, we can spoof a public match, but without any of the video editing or asset packs like we've talked about before. Still to this day, these types of spoofed games are referred to as Azza lobbies and Azza mod menus solely because of this incident. And as time went on, Azza lobbies would only become more advanced, with even more features to help the cheaters. In particular, this feature right here is one of the most important. Explosive bullets, or EB for short. What this feature does is it allows your bullets to still hit the enemy, even if you actually missed.
Yeah, I remember when
you
this shit was
can think
going
of it like
around,
expanding
bro.
the hitbox of the enemy players, making it significantly easier to hit trick shots.
Yeah, I remember that shit.
And you can actually
This shit's in
configure
Apex?
how
Yeah, it is.
powerful
It
the
is.
EB
It's in a lot of
is.
games.
If you set it to the maximum
It's in a lot of games.
value, then basically all of your shots will hit, even if you're just looking up at the sky. But if you set it to a small value, like 50 or 100, then it only expands the hitbox by a small amount, and it still looks very legit. And so, over the years, Azza lobbies with EB became a very popular way to fake trick shots. The only problem was that it required a modded Xbox, which most people didn't have. So because of this, hackers who did have a modded Xbox started to sell these Azza lobbies to trick shotters. For example, this website right here was selling them for $5 per lobby. And if you're wondering what happened to Azza, he was kicked out of SOAR for a few days, but he was quickly forgiven and allowed back. Ultimately, he quit the scene in 2015, and he went down as a pretty legendary player. But he was always remembered the most for that Azza lobby.
Yo, what is up, guys? Sawtrust here today. Today I'll be showing you guys how to find people that set up and lock lobbies on BO2.
So now, let's go ahead and take a look at yet another cheating method. In March 2013, there was a free DLC for all players on Black Ops 2 when Nuketown 2025 was added.
Yeah.
From this point on, every player had to have this DLC installed, or it wouldn't let you play the game. You would get blocked by this screen, which forced you to download the update.
Shit was super annoying.
But there was a glitch to bypass this screen and get into the game anyway.
So once you get to the main menu, it's going to tell you that you can't get in unless you have Nuketown. Now there are two ways to get past this. You can either get invited by a friend, or you can go to a friend's player channel and load up a custom game. Doing this gets you past the main screen of that.
So why would you want to do this? Well, if you did this glitch, you would only get matched up with other players who had also done the same thing. And since it was basically just trick shotters doing this glitch, whenever they searched for a game, they would only get matched up with other trick shotters. And then they would take turns setting up for each other, allowing each other to go for trick shots without any regular players trying to kill them.
So if you want to use this method to, level up on some kids trying to set up, you can go ahead and do that. Just delete Nuketown, and now you can also use this to set up, but I will fine you and I will expose you. This has been Sawtrust, and I'm out.
This type of cheating method became known as locked lobbies, and there were numerous other ways to
locked lobbies
do it across the COD games.
That's crazy.
And I have to say, it became a very popular method, and Sawtrust had his work cut out for him.
And today we'll be exposing Red Strobe, Soar Andes, and Soar Glows for setting up clips in a Black Ops 2 locked lobby. I thought Red was one of the few legit clans out there, but this just shows how all my hope is gone.
But out of all these cheats we've seen so far, at least you still needed to have the skill to actually pull off the shot itself, even if it was set up in a private match or a locked lobby. However, that was all about to change with this next method. In 2013, a device was released called the Cronus Max. This device can be plugged into your console, and it can be used to play back macro scripts on the controller.
Damn.
So unsurprisingly,
trick
shotters would create macros to do the trick shots for them. Oh, and of course, they would also sell these scripts.
If you have a pack, which you can buy my pack for like $20, it's pretty cheap. Ton of scripts, by the way, super cheap. Buy my pack. Or you can make your own scripts. I'll put a blank. Yeah. All it does is literally not shoot from it. And then this is you just built the fucking. This is like what all the nerds do. Congrats, you're a nerd now.
This method also became quite popular, and it's still used to this day. Although a lot of the time it will be overused to the point where it was a bit obvious.
Yo, he's down. Oh, yo, he's down. Oh,
that's
dude. I wish they would do their stuff legit, but hey, is what it is. Apprentice is ruined trick shotting. Exactly, bro.
So now let's jump ahead to 2020. By this point, most of the people still trickshotting were playing on Plutonium.
Hey.
Plutonium is a modded version of Black Ops 2 on PC, which allows you to host custom servers. And at the time, a FaZe member called FaZe Adapt was hosting a trickshot server. On this server, there was a particular player who often joined that stood out above
I remember when
everyone
this
else.
happened, bro. I
A
remember
player
when
by
this
the
happened.
name of Warpsy,
Yeah,
who got
Warpsy.
everyone's attention with his crazy shots.
Yeah, I remember this shit.
Oh my god. Oh my god! Fucking god!
Wow! Who is, bro? This kid is cracked. What?
Warpsy would
remember
specifically log onto the
Warpsy.
server whenever the FaZe members were playing. This way, he knew that he would get their attention whenever he hit a good shot.
You two-pieced it with cooldown across the map wallbang? Fuck this kid, bro.
And he impressed them so much that they started to think about recruiting him.
We were looking at this one kid, man, because he looked like a grinder. He was working hard. We saw him. He kind of reminded us of us when we were kids. When we were growing up doing this, you know what I'm saying, making video, give him a career, and then maybe if he keeps killing it, you know, bring him on the FaZe. Obviously, there was no...
With all this success, Warpsy was apparently the talk of the town in his high school. But then, something very strange happened
I remember this
when
shit
he hit
happening.
another shot on the server.
Bro! Oh, he left. Thank God. Thank God. That means he didn't hit it. Sick. Wait, why'd you leave, motherfucker? That was crazy, bro. I spawned. Oh my God. No, 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 no. Bro, that was. He's hacking. Bro, he has to be hacking.
He is hacking. 100%. Wow, that's actually crazy. I thought that.
Wait, bro, that means he's hacking.
I thought that Warpsy kid was.
Does that mean the other shots he was hacking?
Yeah, that's why he left the game.
Some people were already
Yeah, I
suspicious
remember that
Warpsy
shit, bro.
might be hacking. But after this, it looked pretty much confirmed. He was literally looking the opposite
Bang,
direction to
right.
the enemy, and yet the shot still hit. In fact, this looked just like the EB hack from the Azza lobbies that I was talking about earlier.
Insane? Yeah.
And as it turns out,
I remember when that shit
there was a
happened.
website called engineowning.com, which was selling a hack with this exact feature. So now, the FaZe members suspected Warpsy of using this, and they summoned him to a Discord call.
And then they search his PC and they're like, yeah, what's that file right there?
A non-tensor.
Homie's still pretending not to be like caught. And he's just like, yo.
No, dude, this whole situation is actually like everyone at in my school. Is
Yo,
texting
nice
right now, like,
hours, homie.
dude, what is
Jeez.
going on?
Warpsy was doing his best to try to defend himself. But after about 30 minutes of intense interrogation, FaZe Rain had a genius idea to get to the bottom of this. You see, in order to get the engine owning hack to work on Plutonium, you actually had to rename the Black Ops 2 EXE in the game files. So
Yeah.
if Warpsy had this renamed file, then that would truly be the smoking gun. And so FaZe Rain told Warpsy to show his game files, and this is what went down.
Your file is named T6MP. My
Correct.
file is named T6RMP.
Yeah.
And if you have T6MP, apparently that means that you most likely have cheats. Because
Yeah.
our files are. Why
Yeah,
do you
my,
not?
my
have the
files
R?
doesn't. My files don't look like that either. Why does yours say that?
Yeah.
And it's true because mine. What do you mean? Yeah. So you are cheating?
So, okay, I think.
So you are. You are. If you. What do you mean? So.
Yes.
You just be like no. So you
Yes
are.
or no?
Okay.
You're cheating.
No,
You're
I'm out.
cheating, man.
I'm
You
out.
really
So,
are- you fucked up, bro. You
So,
really,
yeah.
you really had a chance, man. I'm serious. You really did have a chance, and
I know. I did fuck up.
There's certain things, it's just whack.
I remember that,
man.
yeah.
And that's faking clips on COD, man. It's one of the 10 commandments, man. Thou shalt not EB. And then homie did it.
Thou shalt not
So
eat
now,
me.
I think it's about time to revisit that question from the beginning. Those classic montages from back in the day, all those trick shots that made people's childhoods, how many of them were actually real?
Not many.
Of course, we'll never truly be able to quantify this, but I'd wager that if we could know the number, there were more fakes than most people ever imagined.
Yeah, there's not many real clips. I
With that
guarantee you.
said, to me personally, it
Bro, I
doesn't
love it when the
tarnish
kids
memory
get
or
caught and they
nostalgia.
just immediately
all
leave
of these
like that. That
sagas,
shit's so
all of
funny.
the drama, all of the time and effort put into these crazy cheating methods. To me, it all just makes me more amazed and more immersed in the history. And to the cheaters who were featured in this video, all I can really say is thank you for adding to that memory, adding to that nostalgia, and being a part of this journey. This is your boy Retro.
Just started exposing
signing
people.
out.
Fire, bro. Fire video. That was all put together. Do you think it was wild TSM took third? I mean, they won regionals, though. They won regionals, though, so they get the last laugh, you know what I mean? It's just like, who cares? They won regionals, baby!
Today's case examines the brutal double homicide of a young couple in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The case was unusual, with a friend claiming to overhear the start of the attack over the phone.
County 911. Oh my God, we just called the police here. I'm on anchor. Yes, but we need a rescue coming. He's got a bag over his head.
And as the investigation unfolded, it seemed that many of those closest to the couple were unwilling to share what they knew with police.
What?
Did he sound like he was out of breath?
No.
Did he sound like he...
What time is it? Doing absolutely.
He was scared or nervous?
No.
Did he sound like he knew them people?
That's why I said I think that whoever did it, he knew.
It would take nearly a year for investigators to sift through the web of lies and half-truths before an arrest could be made. Yet 10 years later, questions remain. Do police really have their killer? And who else was involved? This is the disturbing case of Johnny Clark and Lisa Straub. Before we start, we would like to send our deepest sympathies to the loved ones of Johnny Clark and Lisa Straub, who fell victim to the abominable acts described in this case.
Three hours, baby!
It was midwinter in Toledo, Ohio. Snow covered the streets of the quiet suburban neighborhood of Holland. Residents had long since turned in for the night, but at 2161 Longacre Lane, a nightmare was unfolding. Officers arrived at the house on Longacre Lane sometime just before 2 a.m. They found there were lights on inside the home, but no one was answering the door. A search of the property revealed nothing suspicious, and with no probable cause to break into the home, they left. 2161 Longacre Lane was the home of Jeff and Mary Beth Straub. 3 days earlier, the couple had left for a cruise to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary, leaving their daughter, 20-year-old Lisa Straub, and her boyfriend, Johnny Clark, age 21, in charge of the house. Lisa and Johnny had been dating off and on since the summer of 2009. For the first time, the pair had rented an apartment in Toledo. But with Johnny attending barber school and Lisa working part-time at TGI Fridays while attending nursing college, money was tight. In December 2010, Lisa's parents agreed to let the couple move back into the family home. With their extended vacation coming up, it seemed like an arrangement that would benefit everyone. Just 3 days after the Straubs left for their cruise, Johnny's mother, May T., would place the first of 4 911 calls made that evening.
Listen, ma'am, I am a concerned mother. Okay, 4 cop cars were already out at this residence. They're not there, and her car is in the driveway. I want to know where my son's at.
Okay. I want to know where my son and his girlfriend are at. I want to know if they got abducted by whoever tried to assault them and rob them. And it's pretty funny that this girl named Tiffany, which is there right now by the residence, waits 2 hours to call somebody and report this.
Okay. Well, like I said, we were out there. There was nothing going on there.
Okay. Where is my son and his girlfriend and her car's in the driveway?
How would I know that, ma'am?
I need to report my son missing. I have a feeling you set up my son. My son is missing. He's nowhere to be found.
Officers returned to the house where they found several people waiting at the property. Johnny's parents, Métis and Johnny Clark, Métis' cousin, and Tiffany, the friend who had alerted Johnny's mother to the concerning phone call. Police searched the property for a second time.
Probably
Blinds
both.
and shutters
Yeah,
prevented them from
probably
seeing
Apex,
inside the
bro.
house, and once again, they left. The Clarks now searched the premises themselves. At the back of the house, Mr. Clark spotted a window
They're gonna be
containing
even
partially
raised, word
opened
for that.
blinds. He hoisted Métis' cousin up to peer through the slats.
Oh my God. You need to get the police out to Long Acre Lane. My son is in the basement tied up at his house. I just saw him through the window. The police were out here earlier and did absolutely nothing. Both cell phones are on the ground and we can see the people. Him and his girlfriend are tied up in the basement.
Okay, all right, we'll get them out there.
Get the cops out here. I told them earlier and they wouldn't listen to
You
me.
need to calm down. We'll get them out there. But yelling at me is
They're unconscious. They're unconscious, ma'am.
Oh, okay, you said they're unconscious?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Before officers could arrive, Mr. Clark kicked in the front door. On the floor of the kitchen, he found Johnny and Lisa laying on the floor with their hands bound with duct tape and plastic bags over their head. He ripped open the bags only to find that his son and Lisa were dead.
I found them, and I ripped off the bag off my son's head.
You found them tied up, bound with bags around their head.
Then went to her and did the same.
Detective Jeff Kozak, who later would lead the investigation, was
That's
the first
rough,
on the
man.
scene.
That's
Seeing
like
it would
the
be swarmed with police
saddest
and
way to die, bro. Holy fuck. That is, it's like, they... Oh, God, that's unfathomable. That shit hurts so much. That shit would hurt so fucking much. That'd be the worst way to fucking die, hands down. No questions asked. No fucking questions asked. Either
forensic
that or burning
experts.
alive.
Lisa and
Worst
Johnny
days.
lay on their backs on the kitchen floor. Both their hands and Johnny's ankles had been bound with black duct tape. Plastic grocery bags had been placed over their heads and secured around their necks with duct tape. Their deaths would later be recorded as due to strangulation from the duct tape and asphyxiation. Moving room by room, investigators documented the crime scene. Downstairs, a plant pot and a clock had been knocked over. Cabinets lay open. Broken pieces of a cell phone were scattered across the floor, and a torn photo of the couple was left in the sunroom. The door between the garage and the kitchen showed signs of bowing at the deadbolt.
My hella stacked. I got
Upstairs
like my
had been
bank's worth like
ransacked, the
400
master
mil or
bedroom
something.
in
It's not bad.
particular. Dresser drawers were open and emptied, and the mattress was pushed off of the box spring. Clothes had been flung around the walk-in closet, and
I've
the
just been
dresser
getting my
pushed
skills
forward.
up. I'm trying to get to
A
level
panel
2000
behind
total.
the dresser led to a crawl space that had been opened, and a hole had
I'm
been made in the
1777.
drywall. The lock
So I'm like
on Lisa's bedroom door showed inward
getting close.
impact damage. If this was a botched robbery, it was a strange one. 6 envelopes containing 4.6 million in Iraqi dinars was left discarded, the equivalent of about $4,500. Other valuables, including laptops and jewelry, were also untouched. Only 2 $20 bills were taken from the house. Clearly, the perpetrators had been looking for something specific. Police began piecing together a picture of what had happened. The perpetrators, they believed, had entered the house via the garage door. Johnny and Lisa had likely spotted them and attempted to block them from entering the house, hence the damage to the internal door. At some point, Lisa had likely fled and locked herself in her bedroom before the door had been forced inward. Police concluded that more than one perpetrator must have been involved. The timing of the attack suggested they knew the Straubs were away and therefore had some connection to the couple. Other clues suggested the attack had been planned. The duct tape had been brought to the house, as well as the plastic bags. And then there was the unusual M.O. These murders would have taken time to execute. They smacked to police of something personal. On March 1st, police announced at their press conference their belief that Johnny and Lisa had been specifically
Apex is kind of just broken though right now, man.
News
I
of
don't
the
know if you're
double
still here or
homicide in
not.
the suburban
Doesn't say
neighborhood
anybody's here,
made
but
national
Apex is just like
headlines.
broken right
Police
now.
came
Nobody
under
is
fire
like
by
playing
journalists
legit.
for
It
failing to
sucks.
enter the
And
home.
they Respawn fired all of their like anti-cheat team, and like it just sucks. Just sucks. Go on. Your little ass going. Or in the Xbox lobbies. That's crazy.
Earlier.
They just got
Joey
scripts.
Jackson,
Those kids
do
are
you
just using like a
realize
Zen for scripts.
that the police, in coming there 2 different times, the first time they stayed, I think, 11 minutes. The second time they came 30 minutes. They knew that the 911 call said that the son had said, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And it's the family that had to find the bodies with the plastic bags over the heads?
This is a horrific circumstance, by all means, Gene. I mean, listen, in terms of probable cause or objective standard, whatever you want to call it, there's more than ample here. You have a phone call to 911 repeatedly by the mother. You have the girl who's describing the friend who's saying it's ransacked, the lights are on, you have the car there, and they're not there. It's problematic. And even if you say there was no objective, credible reason or probable cause, Gene, what about an exigent circumstance? Something needed to be done. Something needed to be done immediately, and it wasn't done, and it's unfortunate. And I hate to besmirch the character of our members in blue. They protect us. They keep us safe, but something is amiss.
Reporters and internet sleuths, meanwhile, went into overdrive, speculating over motives and digging into the...
This is an interesting case. I'm captivated. I felt my water bottle.
backgrounds of everyone involved, and there was plenty of dirt to uncover. Both Johnny and Lisa had grown up in loving homes. They had been well-adjusted, and they were athletic teens who were liked by all of their peers. But teenage partying had turned into regular drug use, and by 2011, both were habitual users of pharmaceutical painkillers. At 18, Johnny had spent a year in jail for robbing 2 men at gunpoint. Former friends had distanced themselves. Their social circle had come to include some seriously shady characters, many with long rap sheets for drug and violence-related crimes. Police now depended on this community for leads on the couple's killers. Of the numerous items taken from the house, only small samples of DNA evidence had been recovered. These had been lifted from the duct tape binding Johnny, the inside of Johnny's pockets, Johnny's cell phone, and a half a dozen cigarette butts, including one that had been conspicuously discarded near the door to the garage. This DNA identified as belonging to 5 different unknown males and females. No matches were found for the profiles on CODIS. Detectives were left with the job of collecting DNA samples from all of those connected with the couple. In the coming weeks, they would collect DNA swabs from nearly 40 people and conduct dozens of interviews in an attempt to establish potential leads. It would be a process more complicated than anyone could have imagined. Many of the couple's so-called friends were reluctant to divulge information that could put them on the wrong side of the wrong people or implicate themselves in a different felony. Many had had issues with Johnny, who owed money to people and had a reputation for bragging. And a recent rumor had circulated that Lisa's parents owned a safe containing $100,000, a topic that had been discussed at length during a party just weeks before the murders. Front and center of the police attention was Tiffany Williams, a girl who had overheard the start of the attack. Police would interview Tiffany several times, along with 17-year-old Zachary Burkett, who had gone with Tiffany to the house 2 hours after receiving the troubling call. At the time of the interviews, Tiffany was pregnant to a man named AP. AP was the ex-boyfriend of a girl called Alex Casino. They were names that would crop up again and again throughout the investigation. Tiffany told police that she and Zach had planned to meet the couple that night, which involved getting some pills and shooting some pool at the Straub home. Johnny had agreed to pick them up from East Toledo after Lisa
come over and play pool.
Okay.
A last minute thing. Nobody knew we was going out
and
there.
What time, do you remember about what time you guys were, was this on the phone?
Yeah.
All right. Or texting?
No, it was we were on the phone.
But you're texting too at the same time?
No.
I mean, if you're not okay.
No, I had texted Lisa while she was at work. Because we had talked to Johnny, and Johnny said they were going to get pills when Lisa got off work. And I was like, can you find me one, and I'll give you the money back tomorrow. He said he had to ask Lisa, so I text Lisa's phone. That's where the texting came in.
Okay.
Then by the time Lisa got off work, which was at, I'm guessing, 10 o'clock, Lisa had texted me back and was like, I thought you was a friend. And then that's when I called Lisa, like, no, you took that in the wrong way. It wasn't nothing like that.
Tiffany is referring to an argument she had had with the couple 3 days earlier over drugs.
I want to go over that conversation again in detail.
That's fine.
All right. You called Johnny on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did it ring, you think? Remember?
Once or twice.
Okay, 1 to 2 rings. Picked it right up.
Mm-hmm.
You know it was Johnny.
Yes.
How long of a pause before he said anything?
He didn't say hello.
All right, so he never said anything.
Never said hello.
So, all right, so you're on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
How long before you hear anything on the phone? What did you?
Like, as soon as he picked it up, he didn't say hello to me, but he was like, bro, what are you doing?
All right, I want to get this down again. Bro, what are you doing? Okay?
Okay, and he said that approximately 3 times.
Okay.
Then
all right, give me his voice. Was it, bro, what are you doing? Or, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah, just like that.
He sounded pissed?
Yeah.
Did he sound scared?
No.
He just sounded pissed.
Just pissed, yeah.
All right, so you hear, bro, what are you doing 3 times? Johnny sounds pissed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then what'd he say?
Then the next thing he said was, who the hell are you?
How many times?
Once. And then that's when I heard the other person in the background. But I couldn't hear what he was saying.
So you overheard a voice in the background?
A guy voice.
You're sure it was a guy?
I'm positive it was a guy.
Have you ever heard it before?
No. Well, I really couldn't tell, you know what I mean?
Right.
But
Okay. All right, so then what?
then he asked again, bro, what are you doing? After he said, who are
After the 3 times he said it here, he
then
said it again.
Yeah, and that's when this guy was talking, so that's why I couldn't hear him, is because Johnny was saying, bro, what are you doing once again?
All right. Did you hear anything in the background, like a door close, footsteps? It sounded like Johnny was... Did he sound pissed here again?
Mm-hmm.
Did he sound pissed here?
Yeah.
Did he sound like he was out of breath?
No.
Did he sound like he was scared or nervous?
No.
Did he sound like he knew them people?
Mm-hmm. That's why I said I think that whoever did it, he knew.
Did Zach talk about the inside of that house? Did he say anything? Did you ever hear Johnny talking about a safe in that house?
Never once heard Johnny talk about a safe in the house. Never. I never heard Johnny talk about money being in that house. The only thing that Johnny ever bragged about was Lisa's family had money.
Okay.
That was the only thing.
All right.
Why had she not called authorities right away? Tiffany told detectives there were drugs in the house and she didn't want anyone to get in trouble. But she hadn't phoned anyone else for 2 hours, despite Lisa or Johnny no longer responding to calls or messages. And there were inconsistencies in her account that bothered police. Tiffany told detectives that Johnny's last words had been, "Tiff, I'll call you back." But she told Johnny's mother, May T., that she heard Johnny drop the phone. He couldn't do both. May T. had also told dispatch that Tiffany had been concerned when she'd gone by the house because it looked like it had been ransacked. But officers who had visited the house that night reported being unable to see inside. 17-year-old Zach agreed to take a polygraph test, which he failed, but with no other evidence linking the couple to the crime, police turned their attentions to other leads. Phone records showed that minutes before Tiffany's call to Johnny at 10:41 p.m., Johnny had phoned a close family friend. According to this friend, Johnny had repeatedly told her that he was waiting for a visit from a dealer called Anthony Watson. As it happened, police had also received a tip that Anthony had been implicating his brother Chris in the crime. Police now called Anthony in for questioning.
Did you see Johnny that day?
No, I didn't see him that day at all.
What time did you start talking to Johnny on the phone?
I probably talked to him in the morning, but when I started talking to him, like I talked to him every day, all day. You know what I'm saying? When he was
okay, but when? Yeah, but that's what I'm.
He probably called me in the morning when he woke up around like 1. You know what I'm saying? He sleeps in a lot. Sleeping a lot, so he probably called me around noon 1. You know, I probably talked to him, and then when I talked to him, I think I talked to him when I was at my mom's house, and then when I left, we talked. And
did he call your mom's house, or you on your cell phone?
No, my mom's house phone, probably my cell phone.
So Johnny called in the afternoon.
Look how long his chain is. What the fuck? That's dumb.
So you never saw him?
Not that day.
When did you guys start making plans for him to come over?
When I was about to leave my mom's house. Well, he said he was gonna, when he Lisa gets off work, he's gonna come over, and then it ended up being, I think about like 9:30 when we got home from my mom's house, and then I was talking to him on the phone, and about 10:30 he called me. He said he was gonna come over, and then I was like, no, it's too late. I'm going to sleep. I got school in the morning.
Well, we've interviewed a lot of people. You know, I mean, you know, we've talked to a lot of people. I mean, you hear, I heard. They had to come down and talk to cops. And do you have a feeling about who might have done this?
The person I thought had done it, I heard he passed the lie detector test, so, you know. person in my mind, the only person I could pop up and be like, oh, I think he did it.
All right.
I heard he passed lie detector.
All right. You're talking about AP.
Yeah.
All right. Who do you think he'd have done it with?
See, I have no idea. You know, I know.
I think you do have an idea.
I know who it was when AP came into my house. You know what I'm saying?
Who was he with?
Well, this is what the word on the street was. He was with Mike Gonzalez and Adam Gonzalez. It was them three.
When they robbed you, AP was with Mike and Adam Gonzalez.
That's what the word on the street was. You know what I mean?
The AP Anthony mentions here is the same AP that Tiffany had spent hours with on the day of the murders, and who was the father of her baby.
Tiffany, something adding up, girl.
For facts, for sure. I never even know if AP was actually one did it, but that's what everybody said.
All right. Let's take Mike and Adam Gonzalez out of that picture right there. And you got AP. Who else?
I have no idea, to be honest. No idea.
What about Chris?
My brother?
Yeah.
He don't like AP. They tried to kill me. You know, like my brother's not gonna hang out with AP. You know, they came in my house shooting. He ain't gonna hang out with AP. He don't like the kid. He wanted to fight him, and I was like, bro, just leave it alone. I don't know if he's the one that did it. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm going to come right out and ask you, did you ever make the statement, I think my brother Chris did this?
No.
You didn't say that to anybody?
No.
So if more than one person would have sat here and told me that Tone said that he thinks his brother would have done this, everybody else is lying?
Yeah, they have to be. They ain't hearing from my mouth, I'll tell you that. People talk, you know?
I know people talk, but I think you're lying to me right now, Anthony.
No.
I think you have a feeling of who might have done this, and the reason you have that feeling is because, do you know something?
I know nothing.
Anthony suggested that police look more closely at another of the couple's friends, a girl by the name of Alex Cosino. 21-year-old Alex was a single mom of two who had been involved in 2 bust-ups with Johnny, one just 2 months prior to the murders. In October 2010, Johnny and Lisa had visited Alex and noticed she had a pit bull puppy that wasn't being cared for properly. They offered to buy it off her and agreed to pay $100, but they only ever paid $50. Alex admitted to police that she had been furious at the time, but they soon resolved the issue. Then, around Thanksgiving 2010, Alex bought a car off Johnny, who, according to Zach, was desperate for cash. Not long after she had made the first payment of $750, half of the full amount to the car had broken down. Alex refused to give more money for the car.
Did you use, with Johnny, pills?
Yeah.
Smoke weed?
Yeah.
Did you buy your weed from Johnny?
No.
Did you buy your pills from Johnny?
No.
Who'd you buy your weed from? I mean, I know all the players in this thing.
Yeah,
I really do.
No, I know you do. But see, there's a lot of, like, with this whole situation, like, I'm from the east side. I'm not from the south side. So, like, a lot of people over there I know, I really don't know them, though. Because they won't, like, talk to me. They won't have nothing to do with me because I am from the east side.
All right. So, okay, after Johnny and Lisa broke up, you guys sleep together. Did you still see Johnny every so often at a...
We just, like, like, bumping each other, like, out and about, you know.
Okay.
But, like, we didn't really hang out or nothing like that.
Johnny had some good friends.
Johnny had a lot of good friends.
Right. He had, well, one of his good friends was Tiffany. Did you know Tiffany?
yeah, you know I know Tiffany. Her child's father is killed at my house. So, I know Tiffany.
Okay.
And we don't get along.
You don't get along with Tiffany. You talk to Zach a lot on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
I know. I call him all the time. It's my little.
What are you guys talking about?
I just
Pills?
tell him random
Weed?
stuff. No, I don't get my pills and weed off of him though. That's what's so crazy. But
so you've talked.
This chick's lost. Her voice
since
is
this
just
whole thing's
gone.
happened.
Holy fuck.
that's like Zach's like.
You can tell
my
she's a
family knows
junkie.
Zach.
My
My
goodness.
kids know Zach. Like they love him.
What's Zach been like
She's
since
just
the
gone.
homicide? How's he been acting?
The same.
Same as always?
Yeah.
Well, I know Zach's got a real bad pill problem.
Real bad. That's why I'm glad he's doing it right now. I just actually, unless they took.
She's
me
got a
out,
bad pill problem too, you can tell.
There's I wrote Zach a letter. the whole entire time where I mean, basically, I felt like he was putting me in a corner because he kept begging me to buy the car off him. Like, he really needed the money. I really need the money. I'm like, okay, well, I had a 59, but I didn't want to give him all the money, so I told him I'll give you half.
Where'd you get that kind of money? Where'd you get $1,500?
Just from like, you know, holidays and stuff.
No.
But
No.
I don't know, just from around. But so I tell him that, you know, I'd rather wait a week. He just pestering me, will not stop. Like, he's begging me, like, he's really literally begging me. Like, and I was, Johnny, like, what if you just, you know, take off of my money, you know? And
you know?
So by the time
you know?
we got back to Zach's house, we reached an agreement that I'd give him half money, $750. And then it was a big situation with his mom. His mom is like certifiably crazy.
You're talking about
Maite?
Yeah.
Yeah, certifiably crazy. Like, before this happened, she was nuts. Like,
okay. So now you've got the car.
Well, see, that night everything was like, you know, on eggshells with Maite about the car.
Right.
But the next day, things were fine. Like, it was a big deal, but it wasn't a big deal because she knows Johnny made that decision, and
Okay.
she couldn't.
Well, it
relate
was
to
Johnny's car.
Exactly.
He bought that money with his money, or
Yeah.
bought that car with his money.
She was just trying to, you know, be a mom, and I understand
Right.
though.
She
and
was
I told
looking
her
out to
personally,
make
like,
sure that he
didn't
didn't get
honestly,
taken.
I didn't even want to buy the car. Like, I felt Johnny just would not stop. Like, he was so incessant. It was just, I just like, shut up, here, take it. Like, I don't even care. I do need a car. I got the money for it, so just shut up, please.
Okay.
Like,
So you never got it transferred into your
no,
name?
never
Okay.
got it switched over because
So-
I was gonna wait till I finished paying him.
All right, so you didn't pay him the rest because
The car, the tire fell off.
did you hit something?
No.
Did you
No.
hit a
No,
pothole? Did you
I
hit a
was driving-
guardrail?
No, I didn't hit anything.
How long after you bought the car did the wheel fall
Like
off?
a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. at the
This is
most.
after you moved to Berry Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
Johnny's father had picked up the car from Alex and would later testify that Alex had threatened Johnny over the phone. Others would later testify that Alex had also threatened Lisa. Alex willingly gave her DNA to police, which was not a match. She told detectives that she believed someone had murdered Johnny and Lisa over money owed, and Johnny, she said, owed thousands. Anthony Watson returned to police with a scenario he'd heard from a female friend, in which 3 men, including someone by the name of Samuel Williams, had attempted to rob the Straub home. He told police that according to the girl, they had been looking for heroin and the rumored safe.
It wasn't faced, you know what I mean? I guess it wasn't seen by face, but it was, you know what I mean? I guess it was, from what it was, she told me they were masked up, you know what I mean?
Who was messed up?
Masked up.
Oh, masked
Yeah.
up. Okay.
So he confronted somebody.
Yeah, he confronted somebody when he walked out, and then they pushed him back inside. They brought him back inside, and that's when it all went damage from the house.
And
looking for and couldn't find shit. They couldn't find no safe, nothing. So I guess they started checking in walls and
Anthony told detectives that the woman had also placed herself at the scene of the crime. She was someone that police had already interviewed several times, he said, who had previously slept with Johnny, but now passionately hated him. After this tip-off, a pending felony burglary charge against Anthony would be reduced to a misdemeanor, but any further cooperation he could have offered ended with his life in 2018 when he was gunned down by an unknown assailant. Police now had a breakthrough. The Newport cigarette butt found near the garage door contained DNA evidence that was a 50-50 match for 2 individuals, Samuel Williams and Cameo Petaway, the same Sam who had been named in the tip-off by Anthony Watson. 22-year-old Sam Williams had been in and out of jail for years. Sam and Cameo were childhood friends and known to share a cigarette or two. Cameo had done several stints in prison and had reportedly been overheard saying he was looking for a big hit. Sam, it seemed, had been trying to turn his life around. He had received his GED in 2010 and by the autumn of 2011 was studying sociology and criminal justice. Police arrested Sam while out buying cigarettes. He would later say that he thought it was for a probation violation over domestic violence charges and had only become worried when he saw the FBI badges.
You know a guy named Johnny Clark? You don't know John Clark? You know a young lady named Lisa Straub? No? Don't know Johnny Clark? You don't know Lisa Straub?
Have you ever been to that house? It's in Springfield Township.
No.
Okay. You sure?
I'm positive.
All right.
100% positive.
All right. Some more names?
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna throw some names at you. You know, you tell me. You know, Tone Watson. You know Tone. Anthony.
Tony boy, what's up, my man?
Always hangs out with
I know a couple Tonys, but you don't go by Tone.
Well, Anthony, Tony.
How you doing, brother?
Hangs with a mixed dude, Zach, Fat Zach. You know, Fat
Who's
Zach.
the Tonys you know?
Yeah.
I know one from the east side, Starlet, my baby mom's other baby dad, Anthony Wolf.
Can we get to the meat of what we want to talk to you about then?
Go ahead.
We had a problem at that house last winter. Did you hear anything about it?
No.
Okay. A couple of kids were found dead in there. Young adults. And they were probably the victim of a burglary. They got bum rushed in the place. You know what we're talking about, bum rushed. Somebody just crashes in on you and maybe robs you or burglarizes your house. I mean, you know what we're talking about. Yeah, okay. So that's what happened to these young couples.
So how did my name get brought up in this?
Science.
Let's go, Sean.
I don't understand how.
Well, remember when these guys respond to a scene and they go in there, you're a criminal justice major, right? You cordon off the area. Everybody that is involved in that scene goes in, they start collecting evidence. Okay? These guys collected a lot of evidence. And they had a lot of evidence tested for DNA. Do you know what DNA is? Okay, explain to us what you think DNA is.
You. Saliva, whatever.
Saliva, poop, piss, skin cells, hair, follicles.
Cheers, boys.
All that stuff gives up an individual's individual characteristics. Do you buy that? Based on what you've been taught in school?
I haven't. I'm only doing my, basic courses right now. I'm not doing...
They will tell you soon enough that DNA is like fingerprints. You know, there's no two fingerprints that are alike. There's no two DNAs that are alike. Now, when these guys collected a lot of pieces of evidence in there that were involved in this crime, they sent it down to Bowling Green for testing. Okay? And items in that scene came back with your DNA on it. Okay? Now, how do you explain that? How can we explain that?
I have no idea.
You've never been to that house.
Never been to that house.
You don't know those kids.
I don't know them people.
And your DNA's in that house.
I don't know.
You have no idea?
Nope.
Do you understand where that puts you? Do you understand where this is going?
In September 2011, Sam pled not guilty to the murders of Johnny Clark and Lisa Straub. Soon after, Kemio Petaway was arrested and indicted as an accomplice. The entire case for both rested on a small amount of DNA found on a single cigarette butt. But within days, that would change. While being held at the Lucas County Jail, Sam began making phone calls using another inmate's PIN, a tactic to evade police tracking phone calls on specific inmates. The calls were made to Stephen Petaway, Kemio's brother, and the content of those calls were damning. During one call, Sam said, "When you was in the joint, man, we took off, man. That was supposed to be me and you, but you know, Lil Bro had to step up and take your spot, man." Stephen Petaway responded, "Yeah, but you know he ain't gonna do it right like I would do it right." In a later interview with investigative journalist Brian Duggar, Sam would claim that the calls were taken out of context. Sam claimed he had been referring to the prostitution racket he had going on with Stephen Petaway, not the murders. In another conversation, he told Stephen that he'd effed up and was going away for a long time. But this, he said, was a reference to not having sold the drugs that he had in order to afford a decent lawyer. Meanwhile, a woman named Destiny Madrid came forward claiming that she was with Sam the night of the murder.
He was with me that night. And I want to say, I'm not quite sure, but I want to say that we had went to the Bedford Hotel that night. But I'm not sure. I haven't went to the hotel. I don't know if I can go to the hotel and get the records.
All right, what if I clear it up for you? What if I tell you that you're not on the video at the bottom line on that night?
What do you mean?
The bottom line has video.
Right.
You or Sam are not on that video that night inside the bottom line. Or whatever bar that was. Was it the bottom line?
Yeah. We were sitting right by the front door. That table by the front door, it was right there. There was 4 seats. And I don't know who the other guy that was with us, but I know it was me, Sam, and Larry. And then there was another person, but I don't know what his name was. But we were sitting here's the door and the table right there. We were sitting right there.
What was on TV that night?
The NFC football game.
The NFC. Oh, the championship game?
Yeah. Yep. It was, I want to say it was a Sunday. To be honest, I want to say it was a Sunday that we were there. Because Sundays they normally have karaoke, but I think the karaoke was not there that night.
Detective Kozak's challenge was a bluff. The bar had no CCTV camera. But despite this, Destiny would never be called on to testify at Sam's trial. Soon afterwards, a jailhouse informant by the name of Eric Yingling came forward. Yingling was being held on the same floor of the Lucas County Jail as Sam and had gained his trust by explaining that he'd already been sentenced and therefore had nothing to gain from being a snitch. Yingling told police that Sam had gone into elaborate detail on his role in the murders of Johnny and Lisa. This is an abbreviated version of his account. He did tell me that he went through the garage and there was an entrance door to the home. Johnny Clark was on the phone, and he said that he went into the house and they started yelling and getting violent with it. And Johnny Clark told Lisa to go upstairs, and they started yelling and screaming about where's the diesel, where's the money, and they're telling them there's nothing there. They were searching for the stuff and couldn't find anything. Lisa had gone upstairs and went into a locked room. Sam had to push his way through the locked door to get in there and bring her out and bring her downstairs. They were trying to torture Lisa, for lack of better words, to motivate Johnny to tell them, hey, here's where the money is, here's where the drugs are. And it never happened. On the third time that Lisa passed out, she never woke up. Sam and Cameo, at that point, went into the garage. While they were in the garage, Eric Taylor was inside, killing Johnny Clark. Cam Petaway, by Sam's word, is the one who had killed Lisa Straub. They did not go there to kill anybody. Yingling also said that they had found some foreign currency in the Straub home, but they didn't know how to exchange it for U.S. currency. The jury trials for the 2 men took place simultaneously in July of 2012 on different floors of the same courthouse. The defense team in both trials argued that there had been errors made in collecting the evidence at the crime scene and that nothing definitely proved the cigarette butt had been left there the night of the murder, or left there by Sam or Cameo. Neither Sam nor Cameo were the source of the DNA found on the duct tape, Johnny's clothing, or the broken cell phone. The prosecution argued that gloves may have been worn. Cameo Petaway was acquitted on the grounds that the burden of proof had not been met. The prosecution of Sam Williams, however, had not only the DNA evidence, but the jailhouse phone calls and the testimony of informant Eric Yingling. Detective Kozak testified that the information about the Iraqi currency was not public knowledge and something only the killer had known. On July 27, 2012, a jury found Samuel Todd Williams guilty of 2 counts of aggravated murder, kidnapping, and burglary. He was sentenced to 2 life terms without the possibility of parole. Justice had prevailed. Or had it? In 2021, a deep dive investigation into the case by journalist Brian Duggar explored the various holes in the case against Sam Williams. Duggar revealed that information about the Iraqi dinars had been public knowledge as early as 3 days after the murder. It was mentioned on CNN. Yingling later admit that his wife had researched the case online. During Sam's trial, his alibi for the night of the murders and the evidence and affidavits supporting that were not made available. Destiny Madrid had been arrested for obstructing justice shortly after her interview with police. Sam maintained in his interview with Duggar that he was at the Bottom Line bar on the night of January 30th for a friend's 21st birthday.
I know that I was at the Bottom Line bar watching the Pro Bowl with a few other people, which one was Destiny Madrid, the girl that got arrested on my case. My cousin Larry Gilhouse was there. Eddie Flores was there. And there was other people that was in that bar, obviously.
Sam also claimed that phone records showed that his phone pinged off a cell tower near the bar at 10:27 p.m., 20 miles from the home of Lisa's parents, placing him far away from the scene of the call that was overheard by Tiffany at 10:41 p.m. The call was to Destiny, who was on her way to the bar. But Sam admits that he had at least 3 cell phones at the time of the murders, and there was no proof that the number he refers to was his. About one thing there seems to be a consensus. It would have taken more than one man to overpower Johnny and Lisa. Curiously, Cameo Petaway's cell phone did not receive or send any messages or calls from 6:35 p.m. on January 30th until 12:59 a.m. on January 31st. Journalist Brian Duggar is pushing for police to use more advanced DNA technology to help identify the other perpetrators in the attack. One person in particular, he suggests, has not shared all that she knows with police. That person, he says, is Alex Cosino. Alex was the only person who knew both Sam Williams and Johnny Clark. Alex had known Sam since she was 13 years old and considered him as a brother. Prior to their arrests, Alex admitted that she hung out a lot, very often, with Sam and Cameo. During her court testimony, she admitted to sending this threatening message to a girl in the early morning hours of February 1st, just 2 days after the murders. Paraphrasing, "You don't know me. I do this kind of thing. Watch the news. These people get duct taped and tied up and left for dead. You should have asked me, and I would have told you who I am. Period."
Damn.
And there are others too. In September 2016, Johnny's parents, along with police veteran Frank Ramirez, were convicted of hatching a plot to kill Tiffany Williams after firing shots at her from a car. Tiffany claimed in court that she had been stalked and harassed since the night of the murders. Meanwhile, friends and family of both Lisa and Johnny were left to pick up the pieces.
I feel numb to the whole situation. It's been very tough on me. Again, she was my best friend, so I've kind of just...
And for parents, there's no respite from the pain.
There's blood on the wall here, there's blood on the wall here, and there was blood right here.
Was there any blood on the TV, do you remember?
Yeah, there was blood on the TV. Okay. There was blood on the chairs. There was blood on this chair. There was blood on the table. There was blood on the Hobby Lobby bag that was sitting there.
Okay.
Thanksgiving is a time for family and friends to
Thanksgiving's
gather,
a time for
thankful
giving.
for everything they have been given, sharing in the bounty of the season. So how did that wonderful holiday tie into the disappearance
2
of a
hours till
young mother
99, boys.
and the eventual discovery of her brutal murder? Join us as we look into the horrifying case of Kelsey Barrett. Before we begin, we would like to extend our deepest sympathies to the family and friends of Kelsey Barrett. 29-year-old Kelsey Barrett was making her way in life, establishing her career as a flight instructor and raising her 1-year-old daughter, Kaylee, in a picturesque area called Woodland Park, Colorado. She had a relationship with a handsome young rancher she had met through a dating website. The two built a relationship that reflected the mountains in which they lived, rocky, but filled with promise if you worked hard to make it a home together. Kelsey grew up on a farm in Washington state and pursued her passion of flying, becoming a licensed pilot and eventually a flight instructor for DOS Aviation in Pueblo, Colorado.
That's good.
Her small town home at 269 East Lake Avenue in Woodland Park was a great starting point for a single mom. Quiet and in a nice community, the home was just an hour commute to the office and a 20-minute drive to little Kaylee's father's ranch near Florissant, Colorado. That pleasant story began to play out differently, though, on December the 2nd, 2018, when local police knocked on Kelsey's door for a welfare check on the young woman. Kelsey's mom, Cheryl Barrett, had not heard from her in some time, all the way back to Thanksgiving, 10 days before. It was something completely out of the ordinary for the young woman, who made it a point to stay in touch with her family members and friends.
This morning, a nationwide search is on for missing mother and pilot Kelsey Barrett.
She was last seen wearing a white shirt, a gray sweater, blue pants, possibly blue jeans, with a brown purse and white shoes.
The 29-year-old, who has a 1-year-old daughter, was last seen more than 2 weeks ago on Thanksgiving Day. Over the weekend, neighbors and friends gathered for a vigil,
bright-ass
praying
fucking...
for Kelsey's safe return.
Please
some bright lights, man. Holy shit.
In your heart and soul.
Holding out hope that Kelsey will be found.
She dead.
Police found no one at home, and the neighbors hadn't noticed her coming and going over the preceding days. Her boyfriend, Patrick Frazee, had said that he hadn't seen Kelsey since they met to exchange their daughter, who was currently staying with him. He did say that the two had talked and texted during that time, but that he hadn't heard anything at all in the last couple of days. A check with her employer provided them with the information that she had texted them a few days before that she would need to take a week off because her grandmother wasn't well, and Kelsey would need to travel back to Washington state. Management at the company say they approved the time off, but hadn't heard from her since. Cheryl, however, quickly let them know that there was no emergency with Kelsey's grandmother, and a check with the family there showed that the young woman had never arrived, nor had they been expecting her. No one seemed to know where she was, and no one could say when she had left for sure. Local police and the Teller County Sheriff's Office immediately began the process of searching for a missing person. Right away,
Batman,
a search warrant was issued
such a
to
fun game. Such a
Verizon to
classic.
access the records of Kelsey's cell phone. First, they found 19 communications between her phone and that of Patrick Frazee, corroborating his story that they had talked at first and then texted during the intervening week. He told investigators that she had responded to his last texts as having gone out for a run and that she was going to jump in the shower. The text from Kelsey's phone ended after that. There were no other calls or texts from her phone after that, but the last electronic signal from the phone was a single ping detected on a cell tower in rural Gooding, Idaho. That ping was over 800 miles away and a long 12-and-a-half-hour drive, and it was nowhere near anyone or anything Kelsey had a connection with. Just one ping, so far away. What was the connection? The answer was on the other end of Kelsey's phone records that investigators found as they searched through Patrick Frazee's records. There, among all of his regular day-to-day communications, was a single phone number in Gooding, Idaho. It was literally the needle in the haystack they had been searching for. Investigators called the number and connected with 31-year-old Crystal Lee Kenny, a nurse and former rodeo beauty queen. At first, Kenny said that she didn't know Kelsey or Patrick, but she quickly changed her story. When she began to speak, everything about the horrific story came tumbling out. She began by telling them that she had to tell the truth, that she didn't want Kelsey's family to be left wondering what had happened to their daughter. She said that Patrick had killed Kelsey, and she herself had driven to clean up the mess left behind in Kelsey's apartment after the young woman had been murdered. She admitted that she had then carried Kelsey's telephone, purse, and ID back to Idaho, where the items were then burned on Crystal's property. Crystal had met Patrick years before when she had come to Colorado to look at some horses he had for sale. Patrick, who trained cattle dogs and did farrier work shoeing horses and trimming their hooves, had a lot in common with the former rodeo queen, and they began a long-distance romance, but it was one that had faded with time. Crystal had married and started a family of her own, but the two kept in touch. Patrick told her many times about Kelsey, but had said that she was abusive to him and his daughter.
He was abusive
Crystal
to
continued
him?
and
What?
said over the intervening year he
Okay.
had told her that things were going terribly in the relationship, and finally he asked her to help him by killing Kelsey. Still devoted to Patrick, Crystal said they had concocted a plan where they would poison the young mom. A trained nurse, Crystal said that she could give her a lethal combination of Valium and Ambien, and Kelsey would just drift off to sleep and never wake up. Crazily, Crystal actually agreed to drive to Woodland Park and to do just that. She told investigators from the local police, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and special agents with the FBI that one morning she ordered a large vanilla mocha drink from Starbucks and took it to Kelsey's home. The drink, Patrick told her, was Kelsey's all-time favorite, and she would find it irresistible, thereby ensuring that she would drink the lethal cocktail. Crystal knocked on the door, and when Kelsey answered it, she immediately introduced herself as a new neighbor from down the street. She then said that she thanked Kelsey for helping her get her dogs back a couple of days before. When Kelsey said that wasn't her, Crystal just played it off as no big deal and offered her the drink as an attempt to meet a new neighbor. Kelsey thanked her, and Crystal quickly left. She told police that it didn't matter whether or not Kelsey had drunk the coffee, because she couldn't go through with putting the drugs in it. It was just coffee and in no way dangerous. Patrick apparently figured that Kelsey had not fallen for the plan simply by not drinking the drink. He provided Crystal with a metal pipe next and told her to lay in wait near the side entrance to the townhome and then just crack her on the head with it. Once again, Crystal couldn't bring herself to do it. He then provided her with an aluminum baseball bat and ordered her to ambush her again. After the third attempt did not go through, Patrick sent her back home. On Thanksgiving night, he would call Crystal and tell her, "It's done. You've got something to clean up." He told her he would provide a key to Kelsey's place and that she would go in and clean it thoroughly, getting rid of any evidence. He also told her, she said, how he had killed her. He said they had met up to share a small Thanksgiving meal at Kelsey's place. Security footage from earlier in the day would show Kelsey at a local Safeway grocery store with Kaylee in a baby car seat. They were shopping for the ingredients for a sweet potato casserole. Further, security camera footage from her next-door neighbor's home would show Kelsey, Casey, and Patrick entering the home as a group, with nothing looking out of place. Patrick said that while she was getting ready, he had challenged Kelsey to a little game that he had devised. He told her that he had bought 3 scented candles and wanted to know if she could pick out what their scents were without reading the labels. She would have to wear a blindfold to do it. A makeshift blindfold was fashioned out of one of her sweaters, and Patrick lit the first candle. As she leaned over to get the scent of it, he brutally hit her over the head with a baseball bat. He then continued to beat her. He told Crystal that at one point, Kelsey had uttered her last words, begging him to stop. He didn't. After hearing the horrible story, Crystal could have said no right there and turned him in.
God bless, brother.
She'd tell investigators that she was not just in love with Patrick, but also terrified of him as well. She told Patrick she couldn't come immediately because of the holiday, but within a couple of days, she was back in Colorado with a car full of cleaning equipment and a grim and bloody task on her hands. Going into the townhome was like walking into a horror show. Blood and gore were everywhere. The signs of struggle were apparent. The only thing missing was Kelsey's body. Patrick had taken it from the scene already. With determination, she set about cleaning the place. She would later be taken back to the townhome by the investigators to show them just what she had seen and cleaned. Investigators provided Crystal with a cap and a jacket to conceal her identity going into the house. This video was taken by investigators as she took them through the home. She begins in the living room area.
Again, on the 21st of December 2018, we're inside Kelsey's apartment with Crystal, her attorney's with us. What did you see?
Blood all over the floor. I saw blood on the wall. Saw blood on the lip wall.
She continues on, showing investigators where she purposefully left some small blood spatters so they could be found as evidence.
Can you show me where you left those?
But it was maybe right there. I know it was down low and then I went up high.
Crystal then takes them to the bedroom area and to the bathroom, further explaining how large the crime scene was within the home.
Did you touch or manipulate anything in here while you were in?
Yeah, I put laundry detergent in the washing machine and towels in there. I had been instructed to try to wash things, and I didn't do that.
You put a towel?
There might have been a couple of towels that I put inside the washing machine, but they were just towels from dirty laundry. They didn't have anything on them that I was aware of.
Do you remember what color they were?
Red. And so there may have been bloody footprints in here, but I don't specifically remember. I wiped the toilet, the top of the toilet. I turned on the shower just in case there was stuff in the bottom. I didn't see anything in the bottom of the shower. All right.
They return to the kitchen area, and she details more of the cleaning that she did and didn't do.
There was blood on top of the coffee maker. There was blood. In fact, I had to climb up near the blood spatter up high.
How'd you climb up?
I had to climb up right here. And so anything that was in this thing, I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but I had put it in a thing.
She continues, discussing how much blood there was in the place and where she may have missed cleaning.
It was straight, but to get the curtains off, I had to climb up and undo, and it was straight. And after I got done with it, it wasn't straight anymore.
Okay.
The ferocity of the attack becomes apparent as she points out just how high on the walls that she found Kelsey's blood.
Oh.
The spray was from here.
Getting beat with a baseball bat. What a way to go.
I had to clean up underneath here. Then it was all down here. And I know that I didn't get there.
Crystal went on to take them upstairs to show them where there had been bloody footprints left, and then told them that Patrick had told her to be on the lookout for a tooth that Kelsey had lost during the beating.
Where the tooth was? Use the broom.
Crystal described the gruesome scene, and forensic teams would scour the home, collecting even more evidence, proving her tale to be true of at least what she had walked into. But could they trust her that Patrick had been the killer? Crystal told them that after cleaning up the evidence as best she could, she put clothes, baby toys, books, and even Kelsey's blood-covered Bible into trash bags and headed out to Patrick's ranch. There, she would meet him, and they would destroy the evidence. But where was Kelsey's body? Investigators asked. Crystal said that the man had loaded it into a big plastic tote and put it in the bed of his truck and drove away from the house on Thanksgiving evening. Scouring every security camera in the immediate vicinity, investigators would eventually turn up images of Patrick and his red truck. At 12:44 p.m., the truck passes by a local business, Williams Log Cabin Furniture, headed toward Kelsey's home. The large black tote box can be seen in the bed of the truck. He was also photographed at an ATM machine that day, and the black plastic tote was clearly visible in the drive-away picture. He is later seen at a gas station with the tote filling up a gas can. The tote is visible again. A search warrant was then served to allow police to search the ranch where Patrick lived with his mother. Crystal accompanied the investigators and pointed out where he had put the black tote box and where the two had made a burn pit to dispose of the evidence and Kelsey's body. Crystal explained that the pair had built a fire and tossed in what she had brought, the clothes, the toys, the Bible, and the grisly remains he had taken as well. As they checked the barn at the farm, cadaver dogs alerted investigators that they had picked up a scent from an area with hay bales. A discolored area matching the size and shape of the black tote box was found, and Crystal confirmed that that was where Kelsey's body had been kept before they burned it. A number of similar black totes were found around the farm, used for a number of everyday uses as well. There was no longer a doubt in the minds of the investigators that they had their murderer, even without finding Kelsey's body. The eyewitness account of the burning of the body plus the blood evidence at the crime scene left no doubt that Kelsey had been slain. Patrick Frazee was arrested. Local law enforcement, along with the district attorney and representatives of the Colorado Bureau of Investigations and the FBI, held a press conference to announce the arrest.
Today we arrested Patrick Frazee on charges of first-degree murder of Kelsey
Thank you
Barrett,
again, Almighty.
and he is currently
Appreciate
being
that,
held
buddy.
in the Teller County Jail. As a reminder, Patrick Frazee is presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Police Chief Miles DeYoung said that little Kaylee had been placed in protective custody and would be reunited with Kelsey's family. He asked the press to heed the family's request for no interviews during this difficult time. He then continued describing the situation at hand.
This has been a methodical and time-consuming multi-state operation, with investigators working nearly around the clock to find Kelsey. As you can tell from the arrest, sadly, we do not believe Kelsey is still alive.
He told the crowd that even though the arrest had been made, there was still much work to do, and it was underway in continuing their investigation.
We have also conducted multiple searches at Kelsey's home and other locations as part of this comprehensive investigation. I can tell you we understand you demand a full accounting of why this has happened, and nothing is more important to all of us than determining the circumstances surrounding Kelsey's murder and bringing Kelsey and her family justice.
District Attorney Dan May spoke next.
Patrick Frazee was charged this morning with first-degree murder and solicitation for first-degree murder. That is what he was booked in on. Those who may be familiar with the process, formal charges will be filed in the days ahead.
FBI Special Agent Mike Nordwell spoke to the FBI's involvement in the case.
Over the past 3 weeks, the FBI has provided our evidence response team, expertise from our behavioral analysis unit, technical analysis, and investigative resources from multiple field divisions across several states.
As the press began asking questions, Chief DeYoung retook the podium and answered them as best he could in light of the ongoing investigation.
We're still working on that charge. That has reached a point where we are able to charge that point, but I'm not able to comment on that because of multiple things that are going on related to that charge. If there are additional arrests related to a solicitation charge, that's an absolute possibility, but I'm not going to guess on that at this point.
Crystal Kenny's involvement in the case becomes apparent in his explanation. The district attorney would then touch on the fact that Patrick was also being charged with solicitation for enlisting her help in the attempted murder and the eventual disposal of evidence and the body.
We have a solicitation crime in our code, so it doesn't matter whether it's burglary, robbery, murder, if you're soliciting someone to help out in that crime. And you have to take a substantial step towards really completing that. So it isn't just a discussion. You've actually done something that shows the firmness of your actions. You don't necessarily have to complete it to have a solicitation charge, but you have to show firmness of what you intended to do.
In the intervening months before Patrick would come to trial, investigators would work hard at trying to answer every possible question, the biggest being the actual proof of Kelsey's remains. While a portion of a tooth was found in the ashes of the burn pit location, forensic teams from the state and the FBI could only confirm that it was human and had come from a female. There just wasn't enough extractable DNA left to prove that it was Kelsey's. The testimony from Crystal that she had retrieved a tooth from the murder scene at Patrick's request and then finding burnt tooth remains at his ranch would have to do. Patrick apparently was hard at work as well. While being held in jail, he began soliciting for help again. Murderous help. It seemed to be a pattern for him. Patrick approached another inmate at the Teller County Jail and asked for help. The inmate was known to others as someone who had done some serious time and had been part of a prison gang. The man was only being held for a short time for missing a court date, and Patrick figured the man would go out and possibly kill off some of his loose ends for him, possibly even using some of the old prison gang contacts. Using jail commissary receipts and paper towels, Patrick began providing him with a hit list and detailed instructions of what he wanted done. Each time after passing the man one of the sheets of paper, he warned him to read them, memorize them, and then flush them to get rid of the evidence. Unbeknownst to Patrick, the man, who still sported his prison gang facial tattoos, had no intention of carrying out even a single one of the requests. He was trying to straighten out his life and had put his bad days behind him. The man turned the notes over to officers at the jail and told everything to the prosecution team. By the time Patrick made it to court, any pretense that he had not done the crime was almost a foregone conclusion. Crystal Kinney took the stand and provided her own account to the jury, protected now by a plea deal that would have her only face punishment for tampering with evidence. The district attorney said that it was a deal with the devil, but one that had to be done to get her full cooperation. Other friends and family members, experts, and investigators also testified in the trial. A story of Patrick was put together that showed him to be an abusive, controlling person who attempted to manipulate everyone around him. Testimonies from Kelsey's friends and family members independently described a deteriorating relationship and one in which he was trying to gain full custody of the child one way or the other. Patrick's own brother, Sean Frazee, a policeman from Colorado Springs, even told the jury that he had been at the ranch on Thanksgiving for a family celebration on the day of the event. The meal started at 2:30, but Patrick didn't show up and never called to say he would be late. He didn't come through the door until nearly 5 p.m. and never offered any explanation for missing Thanksgiving dinner. No one there, though, could have known what horrific things Patrick had been doing that day instead. In the end, after pleading not guilty, Patrick would not take the stand in his own defense, declaring that he would remain silent. The defense attorneys called no witnesses of their own, and their defense of his actions was only to say that Patrick was guilty of saying stupid things and that Crystal Kinney had made up the entire timeline of the killing. The defense's reasoning fell on unsympathetic ears. The jury only had to deliberate the case for 3.5 hours before returning a verdict of guilty on all counts versus Patrick Frazee. In the end, he would be sentenced to life without parole plus 156 years. He would appeal the decision 2 years later, but in January of 2023, the appeal was denied. Crystal Kinney would be sentenced to 3 years in prison. She, through her attorneys, would later appeal that sentence as being beyond the maximum penalty for the crime that she had agreed to admit to in her plea bargain. An appeals court found that she had been mis-sentenced and reduced it to 18 months. She was released for the time served after the appeal case was won. Little Kaylee is now being raised by Kelsey's family and probably will never have any actual memories of her mother. It is a sad ending to a tragic story, even if the guilty parties were punished for their deeds. Justice never heals all wounds. We can only hope that time will.
24 hours, 1.5 hours.
This footage captures 23-year-old university student Molly McLaren and her ex-boyfriend, 26-year-old Joshua Stimson, working out at their local gym. It had been just 2 weeks since the couple had split up, and Joshua still had strong feelings for Molly. Such strong feelings, in fact, that he had spent days planning exactly how he was going to deal with her. And by the morning of June 29, 2017, he was certain of one thing. Molly was not going to leave their relationship alive. Before we start, we would like to send our sincere condolences to the loved ones of Molly McLaren.
Fuck's sakes. Isaiah the Shark, man. Misclicks are real. Let's go, baby.
Molly McLaren was born on June 26, 1994, in the picturesque town of Cobham in Kent, South England. Her parents, Joanne and Douglas McLaren, described her as a kind-hearted, bubbly, and beautiful person inside and out. Growing up, Molly had struggled with bulimia and anxiety. In recent years, she had worked to overcome her issues and had become passionate about promoting self-love, acceptance, and positivity. And by 2015, she was ready for a fresh start. Molly began studying for a degree in exercise, sport, and health education at the University of Kent. She embraced her student life. She joined societies and sports clubs and had regular nights out with her new friends that she had made in her course of study. And she had started a new fitness blog where she shared motivational quotes and videos of her workouts. By the summer of 2016, Molly felt ready to meet someone. She downloaded the popular dating app Tinder, and it was on Tinder that Molly would swipe right on 26-year-old Joshua Stimson. Stimson had grown up in Stoke-on-Trent before moving to Woodham near Rochester, just 7 miles from Molly. Joshua, like Molly, had battled mental health issues, with his first referral to a mental health specialist at just 12 years old. His parents had recently divorced at the time, and his father was given full custody of Joshua. This didn't sit well with him. He felt like his mother had abandoned him. As a teenager, Joshua would regularly be seen as an outpatient at the Kingsley House Mental Health Clinic in Kent, but he refused counseling for his depression, but was eventually prescribed antidepressants. By 2016, he was working a job in a warehouse and had a less-than-ideal past when it came to dating. His last relationship had ended with a confrontation in which he spat in his girlfriend's face. Molly and Joshua matched on July 31, 2016. Soon they were chatting regularly. 24-year-old Joshua shared with Molly his own struggles with anxiety and depression. He told Molly,
I'm gonna be right back, chat. What's up, Rocco? What's up, dude? Oh, Mr. Not feeling too good? All right, I'm actually gonna go. I'm gonna go put together a puzzle with my mom. So, yeah. Peace. Let's see if you win, Johnny. Hi, Rocky. Hello, boo boo. The heist just isn't working. Like, come on now. Come on now. All right. Anyways, peace, boys.